morning and welcome back to Truth and Transparency. Today's live is actually going to be amazing because it's kind of going to bring us full circle. It's going to bring us full circle to the point that we are today. What I mean by that is this episode is titled Idaho4 Police Body Cam 1122 Crime Scene with ISP Processing the Scene. This is going to be the first body-worn camera where you get to see it transform to, or from, I should say, it being light outside to then it's getting dark. And that's when Idaho State Police is there and they're processing the scene. But first, I want to show you guys and remind everybody where Ann Taylor was at the beginning of May and in March and in April when she's asking and she's putting in all these requests for additional discovery. Okay. And I want to point out the things that she was seeking. And now remember I've said, hey, when we got this dump of all the Moscow Police Department reports 1 through 314, and then we got the Idaho State Police reports 1 through, I don't even know, 200, 300, something like that, but it was over 560 some pages. Ann Taylor did not receive it like that. Okay. We received it all in an amazing PDF download. We just clicked the button, it downloaded, then we printed off everything, and then you could read 1 through 314 from the Moscow Police Department. Again, how it got to that point is because of Ann Taylor asking for requests when she was doing supplemental discovery requests. So in order to understand it, and this is going to blow your guys' minds, I did this over the past couple days and put it together so I can show you guys that there was 4 filings. And so I'm going to remind us what those were. And then I'm going to pull up the reports that coincide with when the state's saying and answering and saying, yes, we gave that to them. It's in supplemental report this. It's in supplemental report that. And you guys are going to be like, holy shit, look at these dates. They had just wrote the report. Okay. They were never going to write up these reports unless Ann Taylor asked for them. They didn't exist. Okay. The work existed. The report didn't. Okay. Also, then you get into then you're going to start getting into like, did Mallory really do what he wrote a report months later and saying that he did? Did Blaker really do it? Or were there other people that were actually doing it? And it's like, okay, here, you have to write this report and you're going to act like you did it. You guys can be the judge of all of this. But for example, right here, let's take a look at this. Mr. Colbert requests, this is one of the first things that we ever see. Mr. Colbert requests an order for the state to disclose the following items included in the defendant's. This is the first supplemental request. She was seeking this stuff out. There's a list that she did. The first thing, and there's like a list of, 160 items. 160 items. In it, body-worn camera, number 1. All body cam and dash cam footage from officers involved in the search and arrest of Brian Colbert in Pennsylvania. Guess what? It doesn't exist. They didn't wear body cam. That will never be found. You'd have to start getting specific then to say, okay, well, do you have anything from this little bear cat you guys took on over there? How can nobody in Pennsylvania, the FBI is working this, Pennsylvania State Police is now involved, Idaho State Police is involved, Moscow's involved, the Sheriff's County, Latah Sheriff's County is involved. How are you not documenting what you're doing in something that's taking course? And this is a government working, right? That we are supposed to be keeping tabs on our government and what they do. And here they're not reporting anything. And by not wearing body-worn camera, writing reports on time, this is the truth. This is what she's asking for. And read this. They say they didn't respond to that in this one. Then Mr. Colbert requires an order for the state to disclose the following. Request number 49, all lab testing, including photographs and color diagrams and bench notes, including but not limited to copies of lab reports detailing the forensic evidence collection and analysis of items recovered at Brian Colbert's parents' home, trash can, cans, and other receptacles and Brian Culver's Elantra. This stuff was done. Okay, when you go and look at the lab reports on these dates, Ann Taylor is asking for this stuff. This was written May 4th, 2023. As they are making up this grand jury proceeding, Ann Taylor's over here just boom, boom, give me. And then they're like, God, oh my God, we're so effed. We're so effed. We got to go grand jury. We cannot go preliminary hearing. We have to go grand jury. We're going to get our asses handed to us. We might not even keep him. Specifically, here we go. This is one request number 49. He's seeking all photographs, lab testing, all of this stuff, right? Specifically, this is ISP and the forensic lab reports, including but not limited to lab reports 11 and 25. Ann Taylor did not have lab reports 11 and 25. I just read off lab report 11 the other night, and that's what I am talking about, the 61 blood stains that they tested all over the house in like their third go around. Okay. And that's when they get into talking about that there's 3 unknown males. Okay. Ann Taylor did not have lab report 11 on May 4th of 2023. She is supposed to go into a preliminary hearing. She does not know there's not going to be one on June 26th for a week. And she doesn't have this. Lab report 11 and 25, she specifically was asking for. 25 is everything to do with the Elantra. Like, what are the results of the Elantra? So, like, this should put you in the mindset of how are defense attorneys supposed to represent our interests, the citizens' interests, right? When we're not getting anything and the state is withholding it. Okay? This is what happens in every fucking case, you guys. Every case. That's why she was filing motions to compel. The only time they would get anything, and so would get anything of, like, when I'm saying like true value to her on basically what is your case against Brian Culver, because you're hiding it. You're hiding the stuff that is exculpatory by nature, meaning if there's nothing in that car that's exculpatory for him. If there's no evidentiary items in that car, the victim's DNA, traces of anything like that, when a jury, and if they were to ever hear that, what column do you think that goes into? Helps the prosecution or helps the defendant? If anybody says it helps the prosecution, I think that you should find another hobby than following true crime. Because but here they had it. They just weren't disclosing it. They were not giving it to her. They also weren't giving her all the bench notes. And when they're talking back and forth to each other and all the stuff that we get to see right now that we just got dumped in our laps all together, all at once. And I'm just able to read through and dissect and be like, boom, here's this. Oh my God, look at this. Now we can go this. That's not how Ann Taylor or her defense team was receiving anything. And that's not how the defendants ever receive anything. And it should frustrate you as a citizen, because God forbid you ever get accused of something, you will be fucked. We get fucked every single day because the state prosecutors, they think that this is a game and they play a game. Exactly. I think that says Heart of Gold. Exactly. This is how innocent people go to prison, or innocent people take plea deals. You take a plea deal because they threaten you with way harsher and higher stuff that you know you didn't do, okay? But fine, sure, I'll plead the disrupting the peace. Like, it's a no-brainer. You don't want to fucking go and deal with that shit. And you're gonna take away all these felonies, and I have to just say I'm gonna plead guilty to saying that I disrupted the peace. Yeah, sounds good. Give me my paperwork. Or disorderly shit like that. But then it happens in cases that you have to like keep going up the chain of like more egregious stuff. Then drug crimes. Okay. Do you know how many people sold drugs that literally the bad actors, which would be the cops and prosecutors, are planting drugs on drug dealers? If you think that does not happen, you are out of your fucking mind. Okay? It happens every single day. Every single day. Where do you think evidence that goes missing goes? Either in the police's noses, okay, or to set up people. Where are the police when they're doing all these controlled buys? Where are they getting the stuff to sell? Where are they getting drugs to sell to people to do controlled sells and buys? Where? Okay. Here we go. Back over here. Mr. Cobra request number 119. All notes, recordings from all officers from Moscow Police Department. And then she stops writing here because it was like out of respect for like to not give too much away. That's how she was saying it. She's like, so when I'm saying request number 19, just go look at it. But she's looking for all notes, recordings from all officers from Moscow Police Department. As of May 4th, 2023, counsel for Mr. Cobra has not received recordings and notes from the interrogation of Mr. Kohlberger by Moscow Police Department Detective Payne. Because Detective Payne, right, he sat in on that interview or interrogation with who? Gilbertson, right? When he was arrested. We were trying, and I'm still trying to get my hands on this. This is what they do not want to release. When people are out there saying, why aren't you guys going and getting stuff that has to do with Brian Kohlberger, blah, blah, they won't release this shit. Ask them. Go ask Idaho. Why they're being such pussies. Why is Idaho State Police refusing to release one video? And that one video has to do with him, Brian Kohlberger, his interview, his interrogation, whatever you want to call it. Can you imagine? You're supposed to be going to a preliminary hearing. And right here, wait, give me what my client, which you interviewed him. You interrogated him. Where is it? And then number 115 here, all police reports, audio, video, evidence of any recorded statements related to Brian Kohlberger's arrest and incarceration in Pennsylvania. There is none. Unless you want to start talking, yes, there is one. That's the interrogation. As of May 4th, Mr. Kohlberger has not received any requested material. And then they're talking about that somebody sent. And she says request number 161. As of May 4th, 2023, counsel for Mr. Kohlberger has not received the requested materials. This is all reports, notes, recordings, and photos. And then we're going to find out what this was. But I believe that this is his apartment, his parents' house, and the school, his office. And that's why they're saying that this is exculpatory evidence. Like, you haven't turned over the results or photographs or anything to do with items that you took from his apartment, items that you took from like video recordings, body cam. What we should be able to get our hands on now, unredacted, is the search warrant when they go to his house, his apartment rather, in Washington. Remember when they put it all out there, the body cam, and it was like all blacked out? We should be able to get our hands on that now, and it should not be blacked out. Okay. We've seen all the pictures in his home, in his apartment. Okay. Let's get the body worn camera. Let's get what these fuckers were talking about. And do not redact what they were saying when they're at his apartment. Like, I'm sick and tired of this. There's no way that they're going to be talking about blood. So that whole search warrant, body worn camera that was all black, it should be not black now from his apartment. And there should be zero redactions in whatever they're talking about. Nothing should be redacted. Can you imagine? Look at the Chris Watts shit. There's no redactions when they're interviewing Chris at the house, and when they're looking around and going around and they're talking to him and Nicole Atkinson and her son, who was a minor. Her son was a minor. Why isn't his face blurred out? This case, they're treating this case like it's something that it's not. Every case is the same. You don't get special privileges. There's no such thing. And so I'm sick of this. I'm sick and tired of saying that this case is no different than any other case. It should be treated the same within the color of the law. Why is this not being treated the same? It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. Chris, they're talking about putting little girls in oil tanks in the Chris Watts case. That wasn't redacted. That wasn't blurred. That wasn't beeped out. Those were 2 little girls. Wild. Look at Ann Taylor. Give me those training records. How were any of you guys trained? Then, after that, Ann Taylor was seeking everything that we have all pretty. So the defendant's first and second supplemental requests, they have to do with Exhibit A is for the first and B is for the second. That was the exhibit. And then she was listing everything that she needed. Well, request one. The first thing that she would have wrote on a piece of paper, typed it up, and handed to them. Request 1. Investigative reports and conclusions from all cell phone analysis, including but not limited to any analysis conducted by police agencies, FBI CAS team, or other Idaho authorities. First thing that she asked for. Well, guess what? If you actually go to the ISP reports, there is nothing in any of those reports that you are ever going to see anybody talking about anything to do with cell phone analysis, where they wrote up a report of what they did. None. Moscow Police Department, none. So Ann Taylor's over here where is any report that is written up that you did something in connection with this case with cell phones, motherfuckers? Where is it? The state has responded by, listen, now this should bother every single person in here. The state has responded by listing page numbers and audio/video file names of information and data provided to the defense in discovery. As of June 13th, 2023, counsel for Mr. Kober has not received any investigative reports and conclusions of the analysis of this data conducted by police agencies. Well, I FOIA'd this now because I want to know what was turned over. Okay. When they're saying that they've turned over audio/video file names of information that has to do with that, what was this? What's going on? What did you send Ann Taylor that had anything to do with this that she's referring to here? Because I've come across nothing that there could be that we have right now that's any recordings to do anything with cell phones in any capacity. Nothing. Okay, request 4. All footage provided to forensic examiners with the FBI used to identify the make and model of the vehicle. Guys, you remember this? This is Judge Hippler saying, Judge Hippler thinks he knows how the vehicle was identified. Okay? He thinks he knows something that nobody else does. Ann Taylor specifically asks for all footage provided to forensic examiners with the FBI. So what did you give them that these FBI agents sat down and were like, we use this, this, and this to identify the make and model of the vehicle? This was a discovery request. Ann Taylor gets their answers. Ann Taylor then uses these answers to provide in her franks, to provide in her suppression, motion limites, everything that they were doing. We're getting it straight from them, and this is how they're saying they did it. And now Judge Hippler says that it happened a different way. What? Excuse me? Excuse me. If Ann Taylor would have oral argued better, sorry, but it's just the facts, they would have never lost this argument. Your Honor, we, on this day, this is one of our requests in discovery. We're asking for all footage provided. And you just read that. Then you say all reports generated related to the identification of the white Elantra. All reports, communications, and documentation related to the change in year of the white Elantra. You guys, none of this exists. They shut down any and all communication. They are not to be emailing each other, okay? They are not to be writing emails, writing texts. That's why the whole thing was we were all co-located. We were all co-located, and we would just talk to each other. So we didn't, that's why there is no written up stuff, because we would just talk like this to each other. Let that sit in for a second, guys. It doesn't matter if you would talk like this to each other. Where is your report on whatever it is that you did, whatever it is that you provided and talked about, because you're building a case so that you can prosecute one day, and that a defendant has their rights to go up against your investigation. This is Ann Taylor. So back when she's filing all of this, she's not lying. You know how I know she's not lying? Because I have every freaking report that and I've read every single one that they've put out, and none of them answer this. Where's we need all the FBI shit. And then their plan all along, when they were having these sit downs, is that the FBI is going to be doing certain things, and then we can hide it. We can hide it if the FBI does it. And this needs to stop. Local and state agencies, when you want to ask for the FBI to help, you are still the lead, and everything must go through you. That is law. Okay? The FBI will be an acting agency of your department, which means it is all motherfucking discoverable. Otherwise, bye-bye, FBI, you're not helping in this case. This will come out. It's just going to be a matter of if the actual media coalition wants to get behind someone like myself, because I'm going to be filing. You're going to start seeing my name all over cases. This case is going to be my first one where I am going to demand that this stuff get out. And you know who should be else demanding this? Is the parents. This stuff is not permitted under blah, blah, blah. No. We are allowed to know what you do with our money. Yeah. We're supposed to be watching. We're supposed to make sure everybody stays in check. So I am going to enjoy for the next 4 years, probably this is going to take. It's going to take a long time. Okay, but it'll fly by, because I'll make it fly by, because I'm going to put people on full blast and showing you how and who they and what they're doing. Hey, look at this. Look at this person that wanted to literally talk about this case 24/7, made a shit ton of money off of this case, talking about this case 24/7. And now when the citizens want some answers, look at where they're at. They're running and they don't want any part of it. Why? Is it because you're going to have to, test the government a little bit? Ruffle some feathers? Oh, God, I can't do that. Yeah. Soft. Weak. Puppet. Sheep. But you're so big and bad, take microphones and call people, names, Nancy Grace, before they even have a day in court. It's bizarre. Next. Report 17. Oh, here. The state has... Oh, wait, listen. Let me tell you what the state's response to all of that was with the car. Ann Taylor says that the state has responded by listing various page numbers and file names of recordings they have previously provided. However, they do not provide any reports generated, communications, and documents relating to the change in year of the White Elantra or the CV or identity of the forensic examiner who identified this as the make, model, and year vehicle. So, June 2023. None of that. They were supposed to have a preliminary hearing in June. Request 17. Please see attached Exhibit A to defendant's first supplemental discovery, because they're not trying to put it out there. Okay. The state has responded that they are attempting to obtain this information. If it exists, the state will comply with the request upon receipt. As of June 14th, 2023, counsel for Mr. Kober has not received this information. And my request now is, what was item 17? We will find out what R17 is. One of my latest FOIAs. We will figure it out. I'm on it. Don't worry. Moving on. Item 23. What was that all about, right? Well, again, she doesn't want to tell us. But here, the response is that the state will then, so I was able to do some digging, and the state responded that they have provided AV 123, discovered on 3/30/2023. Now, this is when everything was blowing up in the world of Bethany and Dylan. Okay. However, the provided recording is an in-person interview with FBI agents rather than the phone interview done by Moscow Police Department. So this does not have, everybody thought that this had to do with Brian Kohlberger. And I was telling you guys, it does not. Back in the day, I was right. This had nothing to do with Brian Kohlberger. This has to do with somebody else. And they were able to, based on what they turned over and explained, it then led to her to say, no, actually, you gave us something that we didn't even ask for. So now we know that now. But this is what we're asking for. Where is that? So this has to do with somebody being interviewed. Okay, Officer Payne. Okay. So ding, ding, ding. Let's start thinking. Ready? How does the name Molly McMichael sound to you guys? How does Molly McMichael sound to you guys? How about that name? Molly McMichael. Remember I said, how in the world did Molly McMichael just show up? How in the world did Molly McMichael just show up that one day and have an interview on November 23rd? I personally believe that this has to do with Molly McMichael. That's where my brain goes. I could be wrong, but my brain goes to Molly McMichael. Okay. Again, the state responded they have provided this, discovered on this day. However, the provided recording is an in-person interview with FBI agents rather than the phone interview done by Moscow Police Department. They called Molly. Remember, they were trying to call her. So, and remember I said Molly was put through the ringer. She kind of makes that known. They thought that they could just turn over to all of us that 11/23 interview. Fuck out of here. I knew that was not the first time that they met. Molly basically makes it known. We're going to get it all. You want everything to do with Molly McMichael. Okay? Everything. They hid everything from the defense. Everything. How they got to people. Do you understand at this point when she's writing this in? So then what I was able to do is you go and you take this, okay? And you start lining up the dates that a bunch of stuff would be dropped, okay? So when Ann Taylor's asking for something, the very same day or the day right before they had their motion to compel, this is what Ann Taylor would walk into. Look at this. So April 4th or April 3rd. Look at all of this stuff gets dropped of 2023. They had something, she was posting stuff in March. They have a motion to compel. So all these days, so it was 4/3. Then you get to 6/6. Then you get to 425. Then you get to 629. Hella shit. Okay. Before 3, though, that was the big. So this is taking us back, because remember how when she's writing stuff and she's giving dates, she was like, yeah, March 30th, as of March 30th, we didn't have anything, or as of this date, we didn't have anything. And then you go and you look and see what happened right after that. So I'm using like 4 different things to cross-reference everything. Basically what I'm giving you is hours of research and as quickly as I can talk. So when anybody's like, where did Atlanta get all this stuff from? I have every single document saved, downloaded, printed that has come out in this case. I go to what I need and where I remember, hey, we have to go back and look at this because this is where we were getting little crumbs in the beginning before everything was under seal. All of this stuff though is going to be unsealed. So that's where this is all coming from. And if we go in order, and that's what I'm doing, going in order methodically, and to show when they drop something, I want to then show you guys, look at how horrible this is. Okay, if only a defendant is receiving the stuff that they are owed all together, all at once, like they have, but they're being selective of how they're piecemealing it on over to Ann Taylor or anybody that's a defendant. Like, that has to stop. This has to stop. Like, how do these prosecutors sleep at night? And they can say to themselves, well, I'm going to make sure that this killer doesn't get off. That's what they'll tell themselves. Have you guys seen the Eileen Wuornos 1 episode documentary that just dropped? Did you guys know what the prosecutor did in that case? You need to go watch it. What that prosecutor did is absolutely fucking disgusting. And there is no place for politics in the courtroom. None. They lied and buried a man's criminal record in that case. That judge, if you guys go watch it. After you watch it, I'm going to give people time to go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's just 1 episode. It's like just a regular 45-minute documentary, maybe an hour. Go watch it. Okay. After, I'm going to give everybody a week to watch it. And then I'm going to do a live on that. It is unfucking believable that the guy, not only this prosecutor, he then did interviews. And he uses the most fucked up language to describe what he did in that case. And he basically tells us that he committed prosecutorial misconduct. He was using tactics. He used the word tactics in an interview. And that her trial should have never had all of the these other murders like with the one. The judge is corrupt as shit. Okay. But anyways, go watch. You need to just watch. And then we're going to talk about it. This guy puffing out his chest. Wait till you see this. Whoever did the interview with the prosecutor, she knew that she was in hot bubbling water to do it. She's from ABC. It's kind of like the guy from ABC that did all the Scott Peterson stuff. And that's all going to start coming out. They did a phenomenal job. He did this guy from that was covering the Scott Peterson case, like, so much props. I hope somebody writes a book about everything that he did, or he needs to write a book with everything he did with the Scott Peterson case. But I'm not going to say anything more. Just go watch it. I'll set an episode for next week, and we're going to discuss it. The documentary is called, I think it's just her name, Eileen Wuornos. It's just her name, Eileen Wuornos. It's an hour long. You guys are going to you have to, anytime, if I'm trying to claim self-defense, okay, and you know that the person I killed has a rap sheet, and one of those things is rape and assault, and you bury that from the jury by not giving it to the defense and never, that's Brady. Just go watch. The Queen of Serial Killers, they say. Watch it. You're going to have a completely new opinion. This person waited this long to drop this documentary. It's very, very good. So just one, just like the old school documentaries when there'd just be like one episode. And I was like, at the end of it, I was like, what do you mean it's only one? I was so like, I'm trying to locate the Eileen Warno's girlfriend at the time that got like, they got her to testify. Anyways, just go watch it. Okay, moving back now to Idaho4. And there's a reason I want you to watch it because it has to do with prosecutorial stuff. And when I was working on this stuff that I was going to be providing you guys, I was watching that while I was working and I was like pausing. I was like getting so pissed. I had to like rewind. I'm like, what did I just hear? Oh my God. I was like, Bella, what is going on? She's like, I didn't know any of this. She's like, anything you want to know about serial killers, ask Bella away. Like that's her thing. It's her jam. She's like, none of this has ever been said. None of this has ever come out. So we're like on a war path right now with stuff in Florida. We're going to dig up this prosecutor's past. He's a piece of shit. An absolute fucking piece of garbage. And he's a cocky smirk. He's had this smirk on his face. And ooh, dirty, dirty, dirty. He's still alive. He's 85 right now. Wonder if his smirk, cocky ass would do an interview. Okay. Okay. I love Florida. All right, back at it. Sorry, it gets my blood boiled. But good, just go watch it. All right. Request 5 here. Request 109. Identity of FBI special agent that is a member of the cellular analysis survey team who was consulted with to determine the location of the cell phones from or the cell phone from 11/12 and 11/13 and all CAS certification records. Do you guys understand that they were keeping the name Nick Balance? The defense did not know the name Nick Balance when they wrote this up. Nick Balance, who is in on the investigation from jump. Okay. Request 109. Identity of FBI. Identity. So everything that we now know. The identity of the FBI agent. They didn't even know it was Nick Balance, and it's June of 2023. How is this that? I don't care. Brian Culver, guilty as fuck. This has nothing to do with procedure. This has nothing to... This is unbelievable. How can you defend yourself? You guys, they do this in every case. Nick Balance, his name. They don't even know his name. They don't even know his name. It's June of 2023. I cannot. I was like, Jesus. They want his training records. They want everything. This is sick, right? Okay. Look at me right here. This is disgusting. This is right here. I'm about to read. After they asked for that, this is what Bill Thompson wrote. This is what he wrote. The state objected to this request. That's why Jay wrote what he wrote when he typed up and said it's like when the state writes something like this, then it's like you're asking us, you were acting, now we want to know more. It's like anything in life. When you ask your kids something and now you're like, okay, now I got to really look in when the kid's telling me, if your kid's lying to you about something and you find out that, like, okay, now we got to even take a bigger peek behind that curtain. Okay. The state responds to that because we didn't know what it all meant back in the day, right? The state objected to this request for the reasons that this is outside the scope. Outside the scope. Dude, he was an investigator. Outside the scope. To the extent that the state intends to offer expert testimony, it will comply. Expert testimony. He wasn't an expert in the field of when he was doing the investigation. He was an investigator, right? This is what they were planning on doing though here. We can hide our investigation by labeling these people as experts. And then if we don't use them, look at if we plan on using him. What do you mean if you plan on using him? He's the only person that can testify to this. You know you're going to have to use him. But you think that we're going to wait till expert disclosures to get any of the information about the cast? You used it to get a fucking search warrant, you pieces of shit. And then here, what does she say? It's exactly what she says. Mr. Kohlberger disagrees, as this information was largely relied upon in various warrants, including the arrest warrant. I just wanted to get all of our bloods boiling for when we play this body cam today. Just want to get our bloods boiling. This was making my blood boil reading this, going back and reading this shit. This should make everybody's blood boil, whatever side you are on. If you want to play the game and I'm on the side of that, why are you, this is not Kohlberger material. This is not, I'm a pro burger. This is, what the fuck is Bill Thompson think he's doing? This is lies. These are lies. These are tactics. Tactics. You are lying. Nick Balance was co-located. Nick Balance was doing everything with you as an investigator. Unbelievable. Again, so that's the state's response. And I'm right over here. Nick co-located and was part of the investigation team. Why didn't Ann use this in her argument? When you're trying to explain to the judge about, hey, we need a Franks, Your Honor. This better be in it when I read her Franks shit. This would be what you would be going back to show, Your Honor, they have been lying to us since jump. And I'm going to use, this is one of my exhibits to show this is what I filed, this document I filed. This was their response to try to hide it from us. Okay? So they're trying to hide the fact of what truly was being shown on Brian's phone on 11/12 and 11/13. Okay? They tried to hide it from us. These are the lengths that they went. So if Ann Taylor did not oral argue like this, which she did not, we watched the oral argument and it was shit. They were relying on their brief. And I'll give you this. Hey, Ann Taylor, whoever was writing her briefs, whoever was writing them, they were very good briefs. I would kill to be able to oral argue. Just let me oral argue your brief because you weren't hitting you weren't hitting the arguments. You're like, the judge isn't getting it. You have to walk him from step A to step Z. And I blame half of this on the fact that the judges switched in the middle. They should have stayed in Latah County. They would have won on appeal down the road. I'll explain that later. Mr. Kohlberger disagrees, as this information was largely relied upon in various warrants, including the arrest warrant. Information relied upon to secure search and arrest warrants is necessary to conduct analysis of Fourth Amendment issues. Further, the entirety of the information could include materials requested under Brady. Now, enter in first question I have for Cyree when he is on this channel. Cyree, what is the earliest date that you got involved in this case? I'm bringing this up because now I want you guys to see this. In June of 2023, this was being, just like this, being portrayed. We're not going to give this to you. Don't look here. Clearly something is off. And if Brian Kohlberger is telling, so you have your client saying, get my phone. Where's my phone? I was over here. I wasn't over there. Yes, I was out driving. I always drive at night. Whatever the hell he was saying, this is when you're going to be talking about when was Cyree brought in for the defense. And you're going to see how early people needed to be brought in because of how the state was answering her discovery requests. There's something that they're hiding. We need to get somebody that can can figure out what the hell's being hit. Like, we need somebody that's an expert that's good about this. Who should we get? So let's say that you contact first Josiah Roloff, and then you're spitting it back and forth with Josiah Roloff on, hey, who do you know that does X, Y, and Z? Who's really good? How do we know this person? You know, who can we get? Because what seems like is going on here is that they're using the FBI to bury everything and to not be able to give us the disclosures that we are entitled to. So there's clearly something being hidden here. And this is how I think Cyree got involved. Again, I'm not Cyree. I can't answer for him. But that's my first question for Cyree is, what is the earliest date that you were involved and got involved in this case? And if you're allowed to talk about that without violating any client attorney privilege or whatever it is that you signed. And if I have to skip, I have all my questions and then I have follow-ups based on what he says. I'm prepared for. Because you want to listen to what somebody says, and then you're going to ask a question off of that. But I have my interview that it's broken up in forms to hit on. And sorry, guys. You can call me selfish. I don't want to take any questions from anybody. I know what I need to ask Mr. Ray. Okay. And I believe that my questions will get all of your questions answered. But this is absolutely unbelievable. In the month that I was supposed to actually be there for a preliminary hearing, and they're supposed to have a preliminary hearing, the defense team doesn't even have the identity of the person that did the cast analysis that Payne used and put in his PCA. Yeah. Unreal. Next. Request 120 and 140 out of the first original 160. All tips received by law enforcement relating to this case. The state has provided various tips throughout discovery. However, they are scattered in pieces throughout the discovery. Boom, shakalaka, boom. They are. Go and look at Moscow Police Department's 1 through 314 reports. Then you go and look through Idaho State Police reports, their numbers. I would come across a report that just says tips and interviews. And then you would see like 16 tip number this. It was a number, and then it was whatever, tip number this, and then it was whatever. She's asking for, there has to be a database that you guys were, hey, you're letting this person, handle all where's all the emails? We need those. Where's all the call-ins? We need those. Where's all the media submissions, which is like if you were attaching a picture of something, where are all those? There is no way that this is being run by the FBI and there's no organization here. Remember when the FBI made their tip line? That is down to a damn spreadsheet with all then the material linked. Then you would just click on the spreadsheet that had the link. Boom, I bet you what would pop up is the email. You can't sit here and tell me that the FBI could work so disarray and unorganized and possibly solve cases. No, they have a system, they have an order, and it would probably be all exactly how anybody would want it to. Hey, let me all I'm trying to do is just see that you did your job. Woo. Unbelievable. So how Anne's basically describing it is what we see, guys, that's how she saw it. These reports just had a random like tip number this and so we called this person and yeah, that's it. Next. Request 136 is all audio recordings related to all search warrants obtained in this matter. The state has responded, okay, that they are attempting to obtain this information. And Ann Taylor says, oh my God. They said, if it exists, Ann Taylor says, the state will comply with the request upon receipt. The defense has been provided with a photograph of a DVD entered into evidence as item 435. Well, so what did I do? I went and cross-referenced item 435 with Boom shakalaka laka boom. Entered in on 1/6/2023. If it exists. Bitch, sit down. If it exists. All that shit exists. This is when they get caught cheating. You sent us a photograph of a DVD entered into evidence on item 435, which is 23M-0085, labeled on it as SW audio. There is also a notation that this DVD was copied to county on 1/13/2023. I'm looking for that right now because I want to see what she's seeing that. So yeah, basically I'm exactly how they're cross-referencing to find stuff is exactly how I've been doing it. And this is what's proving it to me when she's going and citing stuff that you've given her. And she's like, if it exists, bitch, we know it exists. You entered it as 1/6/2023. Okay. SW audio. That's when you go and obtain a search warrant and you're talking to the judge. Request 164. Body cam recordings, notes, photographs, and all information collected at the autopsies by Thompson, Vargas, and Gunnarsson. There is a Gunnarsson that was with the Idaho State Police. So I don't believe this was a typo for the record, but it could also be a typo because there is a Gunnarsson for MPD. Regardless, this is when we find out that these people just went, okay? These people went and just did nothing. They took no notes. They took no body cams with them. They did absolutely nothing. The state responded that they do not have these items in its possession. Clarification is needed on if they exist and are still in the possession of another agency. Hence the Idaho State Police. Again, this was filed on June 15th. June 15th. Is this helping people understand? Are you appreciating this breakdown? Let me know in the comment section. I like when I put things and make everything come full circle. I think it helps when people are trying to understand, Lana, why are you still talking about this? Well, because all the information that's coming out, when you use that information and you compare it to the investigation and you start from the beginning and you look at stuff, it's absolutely wild. Okay. It's absolutely like, if you're going to truly follow a case, don't you want to see what was going on the whole time you were wondering what was going on? Like, I mean, if you're curious on cases, then your curiosity shouldn't end when you don't have answers. I think it would be even more like, give me some answers. So that's what I'm trying to do here. Now, the next one that she files is Ann Taylor. I noticed that Bill Thompson never would fill out declarations. Okay. I think this is just super nice of me. What do you guys think? Super nice? Super nice. Okay, so this is an Ann Taylor declaration. And this is in support of defendant's third motion to compel. So I'm going in order. Ann Taylor, counsel for Mr. Kober, filed specific requests for discovery related to the DNA, in this case, titled defendant's third supplemental request for discovery. The state filed a specific response to that request. After reviewing the materials provided, the following remains to be discovered. A, request number 3. So this is the third thing that this woman had ever asked for. Request 3. Request 3 is the profiles uploaded to a DNA database. Profiles is plural. Profiles is plural. The state has provided information related to this request for the seized item, the knife sheath only. Remember I told you guys this? I said, you guys know that the only thing that was taken, they went to this crime scene, right? The only thing that they did any work on was the knife sheath. From everything that they collected, when we were all hearing, 103 items, and then it bumped to 113 items was sent to the lab. What? No, you collected 103, and then you collected another 10 to make it 113. Sent to the lab. Okay. Sure. They didn't do anything with any of that. So Ann Taylor's over here like, the state has provided information related to this request for the seized item, the knife sheath only, because that's all they did. The defense, she says, has requested all DNA profiles, including 3 additional unidentified male DNA profiles developed during the course of law enforcement's investigation. This information has not been supplied. Okay. And those 3 additional unidentified male DNA profiles, guess what that's from? Lab reports, right? What we just got over. So what's the lab report that Ann Taylor received, okay, where she's like, holy shit, there's these 3 unknowns. What Ann Taylor will soon realize here is that they didn't do anything with them. Never once. And they knew about them before Brian Culver's name was given, before December 19th. Request 6. The 6th request, communications. Imagine that you would want the communications. The state has not provided all emails, text messages, electronic messages, or other messages and conversations regarding biological testing. How in the world did any of these, remember now, go back and like, now we know what Rylene and Jade Miller were saying, like, what is this stuff that just got sent to us? There's a glove now. Communication, right? She was writing things perfectly. Rylene was writing things up perfectly. On the 11, she was communicating and had all those emails. Hey, they dropped off the sheets. Like she was doing play by play on that one email. Like, hey, the sheets just got dropped off. Hey, I'll wait around for it. Hey. So all of this communication is happening. Hey, we're going to employ IGG, right? If we've already talked, we're going to employ IGG if we don't get a hit from CODIS. You think Ann Taylor had that stuff? No, she did not. Okay, but that stuff all ceased. All of a sudden, they stopped communicating like that for a reason. Because it's discoverable. It's discoverable. They can go ahead and say, it just doesn't exist. We didn't do it like that, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Gets better, though. Request 9 and 10. Unexpected results and corrective actions. This request has been partially complied with. However, the response lacks the full scope of the request. We asked for 6 months before and 6 months after testing related to this investigation. So it's like, was there anything that's wrong? Did you guys, when you're going to correct your shit, unexpected results and corrective actions. Further, information relating to all lab personnel has not been provided. Basically, who worked on this case? Who worked on the case? I need all their names. She still didn't have that. Wild, right? Next. 3. Part of the 3rd supplemental discovery request was for materials related to genetic genealogy testing. Date of supplements, watch. And number 3, watch what I'm asking for here. The state has objected to this request in its entirety. Okay. Just reminding us, yep, the state objected to all of this. We're not IGG, what? Okay. Where do you think that came from? Well, if she read Riley Nolan's November 16th or November 12th or 20th communication that she was typing up before they were told to cease, no more talking about anything. If that somehow got turned over and Ann Taylor was able to get a peek at that. So that's why the date of supplements requested in number 3, I want to find out this date that she asked for that additional IgG stuff, right? But more importantly, counsel for Mr. Kober has reviewed the materials provided in this case regarding the DNA testing, laboratory reports, bench notes, and photographs. Further, experts in the field of genetic genealogy and DNA have consulted and offered information and guidance. And then I was like, oh, wow. This happened right after they asked for a protective order, because they disclosed themselves that IgG was employed, and that's the first time hearing about that. Okay. And I confirmed this when I asked Gabrielle Vargas how long she had been involved in the case prior to. She's like, I was hit up so late, like to the point of, she wasn't feeling good, so she got sick. And then Ann hit her up and said, hey, are you still able to travel? Like, we need you to travel. But like, it was all right before that August date when they were all on the stand. So it's not like, I was like, so you weren't like retained in, February. She's like, oh God, no. She's like, it all happened right before I had to testify, and I got sick, and they didn't even know if I could testify. And then I had to jump on a plane, flew, got off, got a rental from Spokane and had to drive. And then testified, then drove back to Spokane and and flew home. And I was like, and when do you think that all of that got set up? Like, how? She's like, it was like just days before. And I was like, but when were you originally contacted? She's like, not that much before that. And I'm like, Jesus. So anybody out there that thinks that they were sitting on this IgG from asking her just simple dates for my timeline that she provided with receipts, yeah, she's not lying. With receipts. So Ann Taylor is saying that the state acknowledges it used genetic genealogy testing in this case, but claims it does not have to produce the records in this specific request for discovery. The defense, disagrees. Counsel has learned through consultation with experts. So this is when she's talking about how all of that works, how IgG works. And here I want to point out that Blaker's report from MPD 100% could not have been turned over yet. And this is why I'm going to point this out. His report of how he went and traveled to Houston, okay, that was not turned over yet. Still to this day. Like when I'm talking about this, like still to this day, that report was not turned over. So if you're going in order to like be providing material to the defense, Blaker wrote up his report about him going and traveling to Houston to Othram, right? Pay attention to what Ann does here. She says, she didn't know that they had used Othram. But what Ann Taylor does is she scares the fuck out of them by literally, when she writes V, and here they got all nervous. I have reviewed a copy of an Idaho State Police announcement dated July 28, 2021, that the Idaho State Police Forensic Service Laboratory secured a grant to fund genetic genealogy testing for unsolved Idaho cases. Unsolved Idaho cases. This is another reason why Vicky Gooch was on the defense's witness list. Vicky Gooch is part and was part of that team. She retired. It was all planned. She talks about it in a podcast, and I got a hold of the podcast. I put it out here back a couple months ago, back a while ago. I found the Vicky Gooch. She did an interview. Go back and listen. And what you're going to hear her talk about is that it was planned for her to retire, but then she knew that she was coming back and being rehired by Idaho State Police to be part of this unsolved IgG cold cases team. Okay. And she knew that she was just going to be leaving and it was just going to be like a week. And she talks about it in this podcast episode when she says, oh God, like I was home for just a couple days. And I think I remember making my husband like a sandwich, you know, cause I'm home, like, hey, can I make you lunch or something like that? And it was a funny thing because she's like, I think my husband's like, you need to get, like, I'm so glad you're going back to work or something along those lines where like, yeah, you cannot just be at home, like making sandwiches. Like she's still got it. You know what I mean? She doesn't, yeah, it's great retire, but this would be perfect for you if it's, you know, it's selective cases. And so here, how crazy is this? That she's writing this up because this is just simply what she found. And here she says, see the attached exhibits. Exhibit A is the ISPFS that they have contract with Othram Laboratories in Texas. See Exhibit A. Then one can only conclude that if you're going to use IgG and Idaho State Police have this contract, who do you think the lab was that they would have used, right? And then this is when I believe after this, I want to know how long after she filed this declaration and writes all of this, when does Dustin Blaker's report come about him traveling to Idaho or to Texas, bringing with the vial? Okay. Because remember, at this point, they have no idea how this was all done. Like, what I mean by that is the defense doesn't know if, because none of the lab report, it's like they did this STR, they developed a profile, right? But they developed another profile mixed with the blood of Kaylee. Okay, so that's an unknown, but they don't list it as unknown male B. And one would ask themselves, well, wait, to do the SNP stuff they would do with Othram, do they send the sheath there? How does that work? And then when she would be reading, you'd want to read the chain of custody forms that the lab would provide on that item, the sheath, to see. And if you were on it, you would say, get the chain of custody forms. Let's look at the chain of custody forms. Okay, what does it say? And then something would have sparked your interest when you see this 11/21 date popping up. Because the work was done on the sheath to get the STR profile on the 17th, then it was entered into CODIS on the 18th, and then that's when they decided, okay, on 11/20, we're going to employ, IgG with this, and Ann Taylor thought that they employed IgG with. Well, did you take both of those unknowns to see who they belong to? Why would you just be taking the one? You get. And then when you saw the form, you would have saw that it said at the top, when you would have been reading it, it says that it's taking a portion. And here, I'll show you exactly what it says. This is my lab binder. If you're ever going to do work and think that you can do it from just looking, like, you have to have papers, so then you can compare stuff side by side. But this is like the chain of custody forms, and item 1, see 11/21 right there? Right here at the bottom. At 15:44, so that's 3:44 p.m. Lab staff. Mickey Hall runs that. He's the evidence coordinator there, as well as like Shannon. And if you look at then item 1.3, 1.4, right here. Yeah. You'd have to know the date on when Anne was given this. But you could see that they did something, and there's another chain of custody that will be printed out. It's a couple pages back, and it shows that they took just I think they use it as like it's just a sample, because they don't remove the sheath. The sheath does not go to Othram. The vial that has a profile in there to then give to Othram to then pull from the snips from that. I asked Gabby about all of that. She's like, yeah, no, we don't physically get that item. They don't physically get that item unless they started everything from scratch, meaning, and she's like, that doesn't seem like that's what they did in this situation. And then I showed her this. Yeah, they didn't. And that's when Dustin Blaker's report explains that. And he says that he just got something that was in like a vial form. So I know for a fact that Dustin Blaker's report was never given to Ann Taylor. If you're giving things in order of when reports are written up, here you go. They held that back on purpose. They knew what they were doing. They were never going to disclose this. Never. Until they had to, and that's because I believe that Ann Taylor, in her supplemental requests, asked for stuff. But those dates. And then you can see that the sheath got worked on again on 12/5. So again, it's just when did any of that stuff get turned over to Ann? And she's over here saying that it didn't. Then she even goes ahead and cites in her declaration Riley Nolan's name, because she wants to put Riley Nolan on notice, basically, that you were part of this ethics shit. Okay, you know what to do and what not to do, and you know how this shit works. And so a new collaborative national technology validation and implementation collaboration was established in 2022. Its purpose is to collaborate, okay, and formulate methods and policies for labs and law enforcement to establish forensic investigative genetic genealogy programs. This collaborative contributed to a forensic science journal. The publication includes contributors from Idaho, Riley Nolan. That's why what's hilarious is when she testified, Ann Taylor's asking her questions like, well, you were part of this, weren't you? Like, you should know how all of this goes down, shouldn't you? And she's claiming that this is the first time that she's ever done something like this in her testimony. In fact, I have it right here. Okay. This is really good questioning, what she does. And she says, Ann Taylor says, and you are aware that the FBI FIG, FIGG unit, I guess, took over, and the FBI finished the genetic genealogy after Othram was stopped? Answer. Where we were authorized to turn it over, but as to what happened after that, I don't know. Okay. Ann says, one more question for you. You talked to Mr. Nye a bit about not comparing the sample 95.9.1 to the sheath DNA. And I had asked you a little bit about your policy that allowed you to do the hand search, the manual search on that. Your policy does allow you to do a comparison, like it's either excluded or not excluded. Though, is that right? And I'm looking at policy 4.5.6. She says, answer, no. We can report an exclusion. They aren't from the same source. But in order to say they are from the same source, considering they're from completely different areas, no, we would have to provide a statistic, and we can't do that. She's like, but you could have looked at it and said it's not excluded. Answer, that would be an indication that it's possible, and we would have had to provide a statistic for that. And then Anne goes back and she's like, okay, right here, hold on one second. Okay. Okay. Question. What role did you have in deciding anything about that trash pull? Answer. Nothing about the trash pull occurring. I do recall there being a brief, I can't remember if it was a phone meeting or a video meeting, and just being asked in general what items from someone's trash are good for DNA. Really? Where are those notes on whatever day that happened that, hey, we're going to do a trash pull? And so how she would note it is she would go in and type, hey, I had a conversation with so-and-so and they asked me about this. Where is that? We haven't come across that, right? Still to this day. And Taylor says, did you give advice? I don't know if it was me specifically or another member of our DNA unit, but we did offer suggestions on items that are good for DNA. So right there, Anne could say, perfect. Now we can ask where those notes are down the road in a trial. Did you receive items to test? She asked. And then she says, yes. What instructions were you given about those items? Okay, ready? Answer. This is Riley Nolan. The discussion was a person of interest had been developed and to analyze the items from the trash to determine if they could be inclusive of the DNA profile that was developed from the knife sheath unknown male A. Question. What date was that you received this trash? Answer. The trash was received into the laboratory on December 28th of 2022. Question. So you were looking for a male profile? Answer. Correct. Question. All right. Did you find male profiles, plural? Answer. I didn't perform the actual testing, but yes, there were male profiles developed. How many, she says. Answer. I don't know. Question. Do you know anything about either male profile or any of them? Answer. I believe one of the male profiles designated as E, male E, was determined they could be a biological parent or child of the profile from the knife sheath. Question. And you are aware that Brian Culber's DNA was in the trash? Listen to this. Answer. I was not aware. Did you become aware? Ann Taylor is saying that Brian Culber's DNA was in the trash. Okay. I was not aware. Question. Did you become aware? I became aware later. We didn't have his name at that time. What? You guys, now you're going to die. Ready? I put out a while ago, I said, look at this exhibit list. Look at this exhibit list. I said, why are they saying that this trash pull happened on November 27th, 2022? November 27th on the exhibit list. I was like, was there 2 trash pulls? Okay. And people still were saying BK separated his trash after this came out. I know, right, Heather? But listen, I said, could this be a typo? Because this would be a really extraordinary typo that you're doing this trash pull. Like, the trash. Because I always said, how the hell did you guys get this trash from Pennsylvania if you did the trash pull on the 27th? And how did it get to the lab? You got on the 28th and boom, you were able to, like that happened like so quick. Or like so hang tight here. So she says, I became aware later. We didn't have his name at that time. Are you ready now for this? Now enter in the fuck you didn't. We have his name entered into the names and tabs between 11/28 and 12/5. 11/28 and 12.5. Riley Nolan on the stand is saying, we didn't have his name at that time. She says, question, you didn't know his name on December 28th? No, I did not. In the files that we now have that we didn't have before, right? This is Tina with What the Fuck Translation Services. I am blowing up your spot. Hey, Idaho, welcome, Truth and Transparency. I'm going to be doing this dance for a long time. This is wild, right? Right? There's more. Okay. You didn't know his name on the 28th? Answer. No, I did not. His name was typed in between 11:28 and 12:05. But even if it wasn't, which we know that it was, then Rylene is asked, she didn't even ask her about the 5th or the 28th. She just said, you didn't know his name on the 28th? No, I did not. You did not know his name on the 28th? No. She says, okay, were you, on December 28th, were you aware that not male E, but another male profile had been identified? Answer. Her answer is from, and then she says, the trash. The trash pool? I knew there were some mixtures of DNA that were also included. Question. One of the mixtures, did it have a male DNA profile? Answer. I believe it did. Question. And wasn't that profile the major component of that profile with a minor female? Answer. I believe that sounds correct. Question. And later, didn't that return to Brian Kohlberger? She says, we actually did not perform that comparison. Question. Did you and I have a discussion a few days ago. Did you and I have a discussion a few days ago? We did, she says. Okay. Did you tell me that you knew that to be Brian Kohlberger's DNA? Question or answer. I said I thought that was, and I could not find the report where we had done that comparison. I've since looked through and we did not make that comparison, so I cannot say that he was included in that mixture. Our laboratory did not do that comparison. Oh, it did. And then we're going to get into now what she has created here. Okay. This is why, like, everyone's like, probably like, Lana, break it down layman's terms. What does this mean? Okay. You supposedly have male A, profile A. Okay. Profile A. That's unknown male A. And you're going through the trash and you're able to separate things. Even if it was a mixture, you can get a profile. And then how are you not able to see that? Yep. Right here. This is this dude's male A is right here. Okay. Why are you needing to say that male E, we develop a profile male E, and then we get to this whole, oh, he's the dad of male A. How does this fucking happen? Like, what are you doing? Why are you like, when did you do, where is there any report that explains that? Next. She says, okay, question. And you could by eye look at that and tell that's Brian Kohlberger's, couldn't you, if you wanted to? Answer. If I wanted to, I could probably look. I did not. Who the fuck wouldn't look? You're there to see if you have a match here, right? What do you think that you're doing with the trash? You're just sitting here because this is what it should be. There needs to be communication. What was the trash pull for? Hey, we're going to send you a bunch of fucking garbage and we want you to just start going through it and just making profile, like if you can get a profile and then seeing if any of these profiles match what? Male A, right? So she says, question. Okay, you could still do it today if you wanted to. Answer. If there was a request to do the comparison again, we don't do a visual comparison evidence to evidence. Our procedures don't allow us to do that for probative comparisons. And right there, Riley Nolan chops off her foot. And now I know why she chopped off her foot. Because then Ann Taylor says, I need you to help me understand that a little bit. I'm having that question because I understand there was an unknown male B found on lab item 30. Okay, lab item 30, which we've gone through. So now I know what lab item 30 is. And so I can label here, we're talking about that unknown male B is found on lab item 30, and that's the stair. Well, okay. And she says, do you know what I'm talking about? She says, no. Okay. Well, so she doesn't know about unknown male B found on lab item 30. She's like, okay, well, I understand. Well, I also understood that there was a cigarette butt taken from somebody in connection with this case, with the case investigation. Are you familiar with that? The cigarette butt? She's like, I am familiar with that. Okay. And that was compared to the DNA on the knife sheath. Is that right? She says, yes. And that was found to be excludable. Am I using that word right? She says, it was an exclusion, correct. Okay, so this is what Ann Taylor says to her. So check this out. She's like setting this broad up. She's like, let me make sure I get this correct. You compared the unknown male B, and then you took the cigarette butt, that DNA profile, and you compared it to what? And that was compared to the DNA on the knife sheath. Is that right? Yes. And that was found to be excludable. Am I using that word right? It was an exclusion, correct. So you compared something that was taken from somebody to an item of evidence. Is that right? Okay. Is that right? And she says, answer. Something that was a secondary reference, as in someone identified it as they saw that person using that item. They saw that person dispose of that item. That item was collected and used as a reference sample from that person because there was someone who said that is from that person. Ann Taylor says, okay, when you got the trash to go through in the lab, you knew that you were looking for a male, right? Correct. Question. And you knew that the male and his family members lived in a house that produced that bag of trash. Is that right? Yes, but not who produced each individual item in that trash pull. Okay. Answer. It wasn't labeled, this water bottle is from person of interest. This tissue is from a sibling. This Q-tip is from a parent. We didn't have that information. It was just, here's some items from a trash pull. Exactly. Here's some items from a trash pull. Ann says, and one of those items you took and developed male E, right? Now this is where she fucks her up. She's like, yeah, we made it male A. Yeah, we did. And you made male E. And she says, I did not, but yes, the lab did. Mm-hmm. Question. In general, the lab developed male E, right? Yes, correct. Okay. Question. And compared male A and male E, right? She says, oh, fuck. She says, there was a paternity statistic calculated because they were both single source profiles, meaning only from one individual. So wait, let me get this straight. This is how they're going to blow up. The question was, and you compared male A and male E, right? But you never saw male E. The whole purpose of this is you didn't know who distributed or who male E is. You did not see somebody get rid of this item so that you could say, yep, this this DNA item is from that person because I watched them throw away their Starbucks cup and I went and picked it up and got it. Okay. What she just said 2 seconds ago, in order to compare, we need to compare to a piece of evidence. We need to have a secondary source that's saying, yep, that person right there just deposited that Starbucks cup. I went and picked up the Starbucks cup, put it in, boom, boom, boom. Okay. Just like they did in the cigarette butt. Okay. So there's like, they know they have policies. So what she's basically saying here, Anna's saying, is that you have no idea who male E is because you did not watch them throw anything away because you did a trash pull, which was all of this trash in trash cans, bags, and then threw them in the back of the vehicle, then drove it, put it on a plane, and flew it to Idaho. Okay. And then here you go. Here you go. Here's all this trash. And you guys are supposed to go through these items and just start what? Doing what with them? You have no idea who any of them are from. But you're going to compare them to what? Unknown male A. So Ann says, after her answer, which was there was a paternity statistic calculated because they were both single source profiles, meaning only from one individual. Ann says, question. Okay, and there's another male profile. That was part of a mixture, to my knowledge, meaning more than one person's DNA present on that item. Ann says, question. Again, only one male, though. Is that right? Meaning if it's only one male and when you separate it, you're fine. Okay. She says, so when there's a mixture on an item of evidence, I don't know if you want, this is her runaround. I don't know if you want me to explain the process. The first step is determining number of contributors to that mixture. That's the first step that you have to do. Then our laboratory utilizes a software program to help break out the components of that mixture. When one individual is male, it's not always possible to say the gender of the second person. Males have an X and a Y. Females only have an X. So if there's an X and a Y present, it could be one male, it could be two males. It could be male and a female. Without comparing to known reference samples, I can't say that. And I haven't seen the profile to my knowledge. Okay, let's go back to what the question was. The question was, so when there's a mixture on an item, or I'm sorry, the question was, again, question. Okay, and there's another male profile. And she says, yeah, that was a part of a mixture to my knowledge, meaning more than one person's DNA present on that item. Question. Again, only one male, though. Isn't that right? From the mixture. There's two persons. A minor female, which was his sister or mom. And then Brian Culver was the main contributor of this item. And that was her whole big fucking answer. And then answer says, okay, did you tell me, though, on that sample, and I'm talking about 95.9.1, that was a male and a female, because it's in the lab book. And she says, and 95.9.1 comes from the trash pull. I believe that. I don't know if it was designated as that in the laboratory report. To my knowledge, it was. I can't remember what that report said. Again, I didn't generate the report and didn't do the work, so I'm not as familiar with it as if it was my own work. Dude, Riley Nolan is a boss. This is a person that's calling out Talbot. This is a person that's on it. This is the person that's giving play-by-play details about the sheath, and it's being transported by two people. Now I just picked it up and it's 4. She is documenting like a crazy person, okay? She's playing dumb. This is playing dumb. But why? Why do people feel the need? If you fuck up, clean up your own mess. Why in law enforcement do we see that you have to help clean up other people's messes? Why? I've never met, think about it like this. In the NBA, homeboy gets popped with having drugs, right? Do you see all these NBA guys rally around the one guy and start making up excuses for him? No. That one guy gets what? Fined? Disciplinary actions happen? Think of any Any teachers, dude's fucking a little girl. Okay. Do these teachers come and aid and say, but no, I didn't. No, they don't. Only here though. Answer. Or question was this. Okay. So male B was also a mixture, wasn't it? Ready for the big blow up here? Ann Taylor let her speak her fucking piece. Okay. Okay. Well, male B was also a mixture, wasn't it? And she says, I don't know. Bullshit, you don't know. This is the biggest case that woman's ever sniffed. And it has IGG all over it, which her whole big thing in 2022 was she was part of this whole ethics fucking shit. Bullshit, Rylene. I don't know. Okay. Answer says, okay. Then she says, if it was designated as unknown male B, again, I don't know if it was from a mixed sample or not. Ms. Taylor says, Your Honor, if I may just have a moment, thank you for that. Just a couple other questions for you. As it relates to male E, it was compared to the sheath. Is that right? Correct. A paternity comparison. Why would you do a paternity comparison? Ready for this? This is what she's saying. Ann Taylor is saying this. Ready? Now think about this. If the trash pull was really in November, you knew that Brian Koberger was not home at that house in November. Okay. So you would never think that there was going to be a match to anything DNA wise in that home if Brian Koberger was not there in November. If the trash pull was really in November, on November 27th, 2022. And where I'm getting that number from is because on the exhibit list, it lists the date of this actual trash pull. One of these dates is November 11th, or I'm sorry, 11/27, 2022. And I said, this has to be a typo. Do they really mean 12/27? And I said to myself, no, you know who else was fucking talking about a trash pull during Thanksgiving break? Nancy motherfucking Grace. Nancy, who is your fucking source? Who is your leaked source? I want to know who Nancy Grace's source is. They weren't expecting this to ever have any DNA in this trash, okay, that they did, to be Brian's. Okay. If it in fact was pulled in November on the 27th, unless did Brian go home on Thanksgiving? And my guess is that no, he didn't. But Nancy Grace over there talks about that, in which I thank God she has, since all of her videos, you have to subscribe and pay to Fox something. Okay. And back in the day, I was like, why is Nancy Grace thinking that this trash pull happened during Thanksgiving break at his parents' house? They didn't know about him yet. And I said, unless Nancy Grace knows something that we don't know. And then you go and you look at these files that we just finally got, and they have the dates between 11/28, okay, and a 12/5 of when Brian Koberger's name was put into the system. And I said, holy fucking shit, 11/27, and then between 11/28 and 12/5, Brian Koberger's name is being put in. I said, we have to note this. Why in the world would you do? She's like, correct, a paternity comparison. And then the question was, male E profile. The question, male E profile was compared to a lot of other evidence items in the case, wasn't it? And I said, holy shit, it was. Why was it? Why would you compare male E if you knew that it was the daddy? Okay, why would you compare male E to anything? Why would you be doing that? Why would you be comparing male E to things? What do you like? Why? After you know that it doesn't match, or that if it's daddy and that's the only thing that you're trying to do is paternity, then why are you going around trying to match male E to anything? Think about that, okay? Again, let me back up and say this. So just a couple other questions for you. As it relates to male E, it was compared to the sheath. Is that right? Correct. A paternity comparison. Why? Okay, question. Male E profile was compared to a lot of other items or evidence items in this case, wasn't it? Correct. Question. And you are allowed to do a manual interpretation per your policy, right? If there is so it's not black and white. So if it is a single source and we can look at it and say that that person is excluded, they are not the source of the DNA, then yes, that can be done manually. And by manual, I mean by a person looking at it, visual, like looking at the two profiles. This is her answer. If it is a probative comparison, and how we define a probative comparison is if we're saying something about who could be the source of the DNA on an item of evidence that's relevant to the case, then no, we do not do a manual comparison and issue a statement about that, because all of our standards, we have to issue a statistical so that the trier of fact has something to gauge how unique that could be. What is the likelihood that the DNA could be from someone else? We provide that statistic. We don't just say it matches. That requires a statistical calculation, which we use a probabilistic genotyping software to do. Question, she says. I apologize. I think I got lost in there. Are you telling me because it was a mix, you couldn't have done a manual interpretation on 95.9.1? Because she wants to know, you had Brian's DNA. You had Brian's DNA. Why wouldn't you be comparing that? Or I should say this other male, to see if you truly pulled the trash and you know that it could be him or his father, why wouldn't you be comparing? Like, what's truly going on here? And she says, because it's a mixed profile, and because it is, if you're saying it was Brian's DNA, Brian Kober's DNA present, that would be a probative comparison in this case, which we have to provide a statistic in order to make that statement. In order to deconvolute a mixture, we are no longer allowed to do those manually. Deconvolute, as in separate the mixtures into its components. We have a software. Yeah, you do. And it says that software was not designated for, nor was it validated for, doing evidence-to-evidence comparisons. What? She says, now you're speaking my language. Validations are important for integrity. Is that right? In forensic, our laboratory uses validations to ensure any new tool is working properly. Now, at some point later, your lab issued a report saying, matching the DNA on the sheath with the DNA taken from Brian Kober. Is that right? Suck it. So she just says that she couldn't do that. She could not do that. Now, at some point later, your lab issued a report saying matching the DNA on the sheath with the DNA taken from Brian Kober. Is that right? That's correct. And a statistic was provided. Now, I want to talk about what we're talking about when we say the sheath. You're familiar with what happened with the sheath for swabbing. Is that right? I've seen the sheath, and I know how our laboratory performs swabbing of evidence, but I did not swab that item of evidence, nor did I see it being swabbed. Okay. As I understand it, though, you've read the lab notes. Is that right? At one point, I believe I did read the lab notes. Oh, you think it's just one point? I think I was asked the question, and the analyst was out of town or something. So you were asked a question about the sheath or swabbing or something because somebody was out of town, right? Question, where is this written? We have these reports now. Where is any of this saying that so-and-so is out of town and I have to answer a phone call? All of this stuff should be documented. We haven't seen any of it. She says, she's like, Aunt Sarah says, I understand it, though you've read the lab notes though, right? At one point, yeah, I did. Okay. Aunt Sarah says, and I think you answered that question to law enforcement after consulting somebody else who was with the swabber when the sheath was swabbed. Is that right? And so clearly Ann Taylor has more information than we have right now. She's like, it sounds familiar, yeah. Answers this question. If I understand the lab reports, it's a single source on the knife sheath. Is that right? That's correct. Does that mean it's only one person in that area? Yes, that was detected through our testing. Question. Tell me where you think that sheath was swabbed for purposes of DNA collection. Answer. I believe the analysis swab, there's kind of like a snap or a button that was the top of the snap, and that's the area that was swabbed. There was other areas on it sampled as well. Question. For the purpose of unknown male A, that you're telling us later came back to Brian Kohlberger, that's the only place I want to talk about right now, okay? Are we on the top of the button, the outside, or in the inside, the socket portion of the button? Where are we? I know. She's like, I know on the top. And we all know this is wrong now. I know on the top. I know on the top. I don't recall if she swabbed the underside or not. I'd have to look at her notes again. Do you know if that sheath was part of that preserved for fingerprints? Because you guys ready for this? This sheath stayed in the possession because once it came out of evidence to do this processing of it, it stayed out and was not put back in because this Catherine Dace White kept it from 11/18 or 11/17 to 11/20. She was doing for Layton's. She was doing it for Prince. Okay. Isn't this gross? This is so fucking sick. So she's like, wasn't it preserved for fingerprinting? Answer. The swabbing was done first. That's our laboratory standard order of processing. If DNA is needed in fingerprints, they will work together. Essentially, fingerprints will say, we can see some possible ridge detail. So if you can avoid this area, after DNA says we want to swab this, and they come to decision of what would be best to suit the item of evidence to determine where to swab. So the swabbing takes place first, okay? There is no notes anywhere that can be found where it says, hey, save that button part because we clearly see that there's some ridge detailing here. It's never been said, ever. Now, question, or if there were ridge detailing found, it was never documented like that. There's no documentation like that. Question. I think I don't have any other questions right now. Thank you. Now she gets cross-examined. How long do you think you have? I'm just trying to gauge to break here. He has 10 minutes. Okay, go ahead. Good morning. I just have a couple questions for you today. So you talked a little bit about policies and procedure in the lab. Do you recall that testimony? Yes. That part's not important. Okay. As part of those policies and procedures, does the lab need to have a legitimate reason to test DNA? Yes. We only test DNA related to criminal investigations or to death investigations, and it needs to be an item that will answer a probative question in a case. So, for example, if someone at the lab, he asks, wanted to test DNA out of curiosity about medical information, that would not be consistent with the policy. We don't do curiosity testing. Next question. And what is a scope of work requested? That just goes with, and this was my first one I've done. So I don't have vast experience in this process, but when we're going to contract with a vendor, just going through the outlining, what we expect from them to do as a part of that. Right there, this is our first one that we've done. This was her first one that she's done. She's been with this lab forever. What? And do you recall about this request specifically? What were you requesting Othram to do? Specifically, we were requesting them, if necessary, to perform a DNA extraction, to pulling the DNA out of the cells on an item of evidence. What? If necessary, our laboratory typically did that. We were requesting them to generate an SNP profile using either SNP array or whole genome sequencing. We were requesting them then to upload that to all public databases that allow law enforcement sampling. Wait, do you hear what she just said there? Specifically, we were requesting them, if necessary, to perform DNA extraction, pulling the DNA out of the cells on an item of evidence. They never had the sheath. Othram never had the sheath, unless they're lying about the report that they took a vial of whatever over there. Now, why this is important is because, and why I wanted to point this out, is because all we've heard Othram talk about is that there's only one profile. There is only one profile. That is so fucking far off. That's not accurate at all. So why would they think that, right? There's not just one profile, male profile in that sheath. Sorry, that's not the facts. We have the lab reports now. Ryan Anderson says, this is nuts, isn't it? How does this not go to trial, right? Now, then she says, we were requesting them to generate a report. We were requesting them to notify us or to complete the lab portion of the work, the wet work. That's what that is. Now, I've consulted with my sources and I've asked, how long would this take from start to finish? I said, especially if you need to ask that people enter their DNA into a database. She's like, wow, if you need that you are far off. You are far away from being able to use IgG to come and to get to this, here. This is my lead. And meaning that is like a tip and it's a name. And it's usually not just a name. It would be like this family and you'd give a couple names. Now, and what I'm saying, so I said, how long for the wet work usually? Well, Lana, if you need to enter it into a law enforcement database you have to pay money, first of all, to do that. You're going to have a receipt. Then that actually takes longer than it would be if you or somebody else that was just a citizen using that third party, to upload your fucking spit. That actually takes longer. So it's like a 3 to 5 day ordeal to get the paperwork from the law enforcement agency, to have it on the right letter heading, to be able to say all this. And this is a law enforcement kit and all of this shit to do this IgG stuff. She's like, that comes after the wet work, which is in the lab of you pulling from the source, which is that vial, that to be able to make your SNP. I said, how long would it take for that? She's like, if they're saying that they were able to do that in 24 to 48 hours, yeah. I heard the best that they could do is like a week turnaround to get the wet work done. So I would love to see that they did that in 24 to 48 hours. I said, interesting. Because I'm creating this timeline. So according to Nolan, she's like, we were requesting them to generate a report. We were requesting them to notify us or to complete the lab portion of the work, generation of the profile, within 60 days, I believe. Exactly. 60 days. Like, can we get this all done within 2 months? 60 days. So then I take that to my source. She's like, yeah, exactly. She's like, this shit you're not whipping up in like fucking, she's like, they didn't use IgG, they're hiding behind it. I said, that's what I think. I was like, but I need to be able to prove that. I need to be able to prove that. And that means you can't cough up the real source. And so you're going to be making up this other way that you got to it. So you were asking them to do this within 60 days, I believe. I believe there was also information in there about not publicly giving our case information to the public without our express permission, things of that nature. Okay, this is to do the IgG. Question, was there anything in the scope, request related to medical information? No, she says. So you weren't asking Othram to determine if this DNA, the person whose DNA this was, had, for example, cancer? No. Of course you didn't ask for that, Mylene. Of course you didn't do it that way. Question. Now, in your position, and in this case, you testified you didn't actually do any of the testing, but you've read a lot of the reports that were involved. Is that correct? Yes, I've seen a lot of the reports. Correct. Question. And of all the reports you've read and have seen, have you seen that kind of information? No. The testing our laboratory doesn't generate any medical information. Well, then I'm sure that you will have no problem moving forward in all of these labs that are run by the state. We are requesting as citizens, and this is what we should start pushing for, just like when they started using dash cams and body cams, all of these state labs, they need to have cameras, okay? And there can be then no problems with it. Like, because the DNA and all the shit, it's the new, like, we need to hold these lab people. Why? If there's corruption within police forces as far as like a police officer, there's corruption there, right? Why are we thinking it's like anything in life? When technology becomes more and more advanced and whatever like is the new way to do something, you have to have a new way to be shitty. You understand? Like, hey, how do we beat the replay systems? Because we need to still fix these games, man. Now with instant replay, we can have a ref blow a call, all right? But now with instant replay and these challenges, now, fuck, we have to, how can we do this? How can we, okay, we have to go back to getting players to now, hey, we need you to fumble. We need to go back to players fixing games. So now, because of body-worn camera, dash cam, right? Now digital evidence, people's phones and stuff, we can't frame people because now their phones can show that they weren't even there at that location. So now we have to have something, okay, and if hey, now DNA is a new thing. We got to put people's DNA at the scene. I don't care where their phone's at. Their phone could have been given to somebody. You know, you can have something to argue. But if you think that cops can be corrupt, then why couldn't anybody that's working for the state in the terms of of labs be corrupt? Or that they're purposely destroying something of evidentiary value when you fuck it up and you test it and it's saying that we couldn't get anything from it. Example, in this case, when Talbot decides to spray Blue Star all over items that they need to test for DNA, knowing that it will destroy that ability once you use Blue Star on the items such as the blanket and the green and pink jacket. They didn't use Blue Star at any time. In none of these reports do you see Blue Star. Now all of a sudden Blue Star was used for those two things. That is absolutely unacceptable. And why are they doing that? Why weren't the items just handled by the state? By the lab? So here, I'm saying that I'm all for, hey, awesome. You guys want to do IGG? You guys want to make it part of like investigation right off the rip? Awesome. Guess what? You're going to have no problem wearing a body-worn camera now. You're going to have no problem with having your lab, your evidence, where there's cameras on it. We're seeing who's coming up to that door. We're seeing who's going in. We're going to see how long they're in. We're going to see who's ever working on any items. There's going to be now a camera in the lab. Why shouldn't it be that way? Why? It's a state lab. You guys don't want to fill out paperwork correctly. You guys don't want to write reports on time. You guys don't want to document your shit. We should never have to go to the cameras. Okay, but when you're not writing reports correctly and when you're not documenting things in real time and you're waiting all these fucking sometimes weeks, months, years to write reports, or then purposely acting like you're going to be doing something else. So hold off on writing a report because we're just going to work with these items and I'm not going to write out my report until, all right, okay, now I will. What's determining why you're writing up a report that's taken 2 years? but yet you did the work 2 years ago. What's going on? Oh, I'm going to add some workload to what you're responsible for so that you don't have to write up that report until your whole work case with whatever I assigned to you within this case is done. Fuck you. No way. These little loopholes that you're trying to do to purposely not disclose the information to a defendant, those days need to be gone. And anybody that would have a problem with this, guess what? Go get another job, work somewhere else. And give me an argument back that you would have a problem with this. What is the argument back? Trust me, nobody's going to be getting away with murder because we have cameras. And now people are going to say, oh, well, look they're going to nitpick every little thing. Question. And you also talked about in the scope of work, Othram was required to provide you with at least one report. Answer, at least one report, correct. A question, and did you have a chance to review that? Answer, I have seen that report, yes. Well, where is that report? How come we don't see that report? Layla Burns says there is no valid argument. Exactly. She says, I have seen that report, yes. Question, did it contain medical information? No, it did not. Question, now you also talked a little bit about with Ms. Taylor about the MOU. Do you remember that discussion? Yes. I just want to be clear. Who were the parties to that MOU? The parties to that MOU specific to this case were the Moscow Police Department, the Latell County Prosecuting Attorney's Office, and the Idaho State Police Forensic Services. Remember the MOU when Blaker was like, you have our permission that it's just going to be that Bill Thompson can now know about things, Ashley Jennings, Jeffrey Talbot. So Othram was not a party to that MOU. Correct. Why do you think that question was so important? Because the state wants nothing to do with whatever is going to come out about what Othram did with the FBI. Because the FBI was Othram's lab. Yeah, and according to Othram, the FBI went rogue. Well, what does that mean? I called the middlemans up, left a message saying, listen, I want you to put the conspiracy theorists to bed, okay? Because I agree with what your work is doing. But there needs to be some transparency. There needs to be some honesty. Because how it came across to people like myself is that you guys did an amazing job for them, okay? You guys have this contract, right? You're able to develop an SNP profile, okay? That's awesome. Now, what happened after that? Maybe not so awesome, right? So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how this all happened. Let's talk about when you want to talk about ethics and integrity. So take us through the timeline. Take us through the timeline. You were contacted on this. I want dates and timestamps. You were contacted on this day. I want to be able to back the work of Othram. Because I don't think that anybody would want people to be getting away with murder. But let's correct whatever was done wrong, right? So that it doesn't happen and we don't have to be violating people's rights and or committing perjury or making up probable cause affidavits that are not true. Because I want to know if you guys want to be part of the investigation from jump, you guys are going to have to be sworn in. And after reading that probable cause affidavit, how could any of you guys stand back and say, yep, that's how they got to Brian Kohlberger? You know that that was all bullshit. So you knew that these people committed perjury to sign a sworn affidavit like that and the way that they were testifying. Because guess who you had to deal with based on the interim policy? You have to be communicating with the agency who's ever the lead. Like nonstop. Like that's who your point of contact is. also it's the prosecuting attorney. So here, the prosecuting attorney, Ashley Jennings, Bill Thompson, running around doing whatever, and then told everybody to cease any type of written notes, do not document what we're doing. This is all discoverable. So stop. Why? Why would you ever be telling people that? Brian Kohlberg's was not found on 12/19. Why are you telling people that? How are you literally, like, if what the middlemen are saying is that they want IGG to be used off the rip as like it should be part of the investigation. We should be part of helping solve these crimes, not when they're 30, 40, 50 years down cold cases. I agree. But that comes with a sense of responsibility and accountability, and you're going to be answering to a lot of things. And you guys don't run it's a private lab. It's not state lab. So now the government's going to go out and get private contracts with, and then tell me how that's not going to get political. Anyways, so the state asked very specifically these two questions, which was, so Altham was not part to that MOU, correct? Correct. And the FBI was not party to that. Meaning right there, they tell on themselves that Altham and the FBI, whatever they went and did, they're on their own. And that's why Hippler asked. So basically, if the FBI went and did this and put it in databases they should have been putting it in, yada, 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 that would affect your case, wouldn't it? Yeah. Officer Nime said, or Prosecutor Nime says. Now, in another part of your testimony, you spoke with Miss Taylor about the trash pull. Do you recall that testimony? Yes. And that one of the samples that was pulled from the trash pull, that was a mixed sample. Your lab did not compare that. Is that correct? Correct. And can you explain why you did not compare that? So initially, she says, we did not compare that because it was a mixed profile. We did not know the source of that profile. You didn't know the source of any profile from the fucking trash pull that was blind. It was a blind trash pull. She just says, we did not know the source of that profile. You didn't know the source of E either. You see how, like, I mean, she just thinks that she can just get up on the stand and lie. Of course you didn't, but you also didn't know E, regardless if it was a mix or not a mix, regardless if it had 15 people's DNA on it. The point of the matter is that they're trying to hide behind this whole thing of, like, we didn't do things because they were a mixed sample. That's what they're trying to hide behind. But in reality, what the policy is that if you don't know if you don't have that secondary reference to say, I saw that person put that in that garbage and then I went and got it, you didn't have that for anything, mixed profile or not mixed profile. So she says, so it could not be considered a secondary reference. So we deemed that to be an evidentiary sample. And we can't make a manual comparison of evidence to evidence, especially when there's a mixture. And if the analysis, again, I was not the analysis, but if the analysis did the comparison and determined that unknown male A could have been that mixture, it would have been inappropriate to compare those two samples together per our analytical methods. Question. And so the decision not to compare that, who made that decision? That would have been the analysis that worked on that case. So you weren't, to your knowledge, no one at that lab was advised, for example, by the lead investigator on this case, which of those items to test that. And that's where I say, holy shit. Now they're talking about, because that was going to be my question, is you have a whole big trash, you have a whole big garbage can, and you have 4 bags full of trash. What are you testing? And so you're just going to be testing, you just start testing items and you just start labeling them unknowns until you realize that, oh, wait, no, these are all the same. So it's still the unknown male B, and then that's all, like, or unknown male E, and all the things that you want to know what's crazy, though? Ready? They didn't take the DNA from the cigarette butt. Okay. When did that get tested against the sheath? You had the DNA. When? How about Jack Showalter's? When did you guys get these people's DNA? Jack D's, Jack Showalter's, Cole's. When were these? When were you comparing those people to unknown male A? Question. You also gave some testimony about the knife sheath and the swabs on the knife sheath. Do you recall that? Yes. And I know you don't recall exactly where the knife sheath was swabbed, but we've been talking about policies. Do your policies or best practices suggest where a knife sheath or an item like that should be swabbed for DNA? The answer is, she says, is no. It would be impossible for our analytical methods to cover how to swab or where to swab every single item of evidence. We receive quite a wide variety of items into the laboratory. So it's the analysis job as a scientist, as a practitioner in forensic biology, screening and DNA analysis to know what they're targeting. So it's discretion again. We come back to discretion. So you get this sheath, okay? And this is my question then. So you get this sheath, right? And because she says to know what they're targeting. Well, how do they know? Like, who talks to them to say, hey, this was left, this is where it was located? How do you come to learn what you should be testing on it, or what's more valuable? Or because remember, this is nothing could be seen in the area that they found this, right? I would think the little specks of, now that we know what the knife sheath looks like, I would say, what do you think is the most important thing? I see blood on here. So she says, so on this item, I believe there was also blood. And this is the first time that we hear this. This is when everybody should have been losing their minds, but mainstream media can't comprehend when they read something. This is the first time that we hear this. Also blood. So this item, I believe there was also blood. So they would have been targeting that separate. Separate from what? That would have been your major target point. That would have been your major target point, is the blood. Sorry, thanks. I was getting my drink for my throat here. Okay. So this is the first time that we hear about this blood. So this item, I believe there was also blood. So they would have been targeting that separate, and then also trying to determine who may have handled that. Who may have handled that sheath. Okay. So they would have been specifically honed in on an area that whoever handled it would have had to have touched, and maybe touched repeatedly. Question, and why do they hone in on those areas in particular? A, answer. Because that's the question we are trying to answer. In forensic DNA analysis, the questions we are trying to answer is, can we link an assailant to a victim? Victim to assailant, or one or both to the scene. So in this instance, my understanding, the sheath was found at the scene. So trying to link the possible perpetrator to the scene. And why in particular do you hone in on the areas where this person may have handled the knife sheath? Answer, because DNA is found in the cells in our body. And that includes the skin cells that are sloughed off of our hands when an item is handled. So looking for any touch DNA is the term that is most often used, or from someone touching or handling an item. So question, so if I'm understanding correctly, the analysis is swabbing the places that would most likely have that touch DNA. Correct. No further questions. Redirect? Sure, Your Honor. I would like to start by sharing a computer screen that I have approved the prosecutor for refreshing her memory. Yeah, it's just for refreshing. It's not an exhibit. May I approach? Go ahead, Miss Taylor. Have we established she doesn't remember, or are we just going to stipulate to it? Wait a second. I think I skipped a page. Oh, yes. Your Honor, I can ask the question, please. We can save time if you're going to just stipulate to it. Mr. Nye says, yeah, that's totally fine, Your Honor. Okay, let's do that. Are you going to share the screen with the court or just her? It's just refresh her memory, Your Honor. Jeez. Okay. Miss Taylor says, everything Miss Taylor did, Mr. Hippler literally had a fucking fit about. Unbelievable fit about. We were talking at the end of my questioning and where Mr. Nye just left off with you about where the sheath would have been swabbed. Reading the email that's been placed in front of you, does that refresh your recollection about what you believed to be the place the sheath was swabbed? Very much so. Where was it swabbed? The knife was swabbed the entire, and then Hippler says, did you just say the knife was swabbed? I'm so sorry, Hippler. Sorry, the knife sheath. Am I allowed to read this? You're supposed to read it and then let it refresh your recollection and then not read it, but just tell me the summary of where it was. Okay. The entire leather portion of the strap, both top and bottom, and then the underside of the button. I misspoke. She did not swab the top of the button because that was determined to be the most likely place for fingerprints to be found. Question. So the underside of the button, was it the part that the sticky out part would go into, or the sticky out part, or both? I can't tell from this. I would have to look at her notes. Okay, good enough. Thank you. And those notes don't help. A couple follow-up questions for you. You answered a lot of questions for Mr. Nye about medical information and that your lab does not do testing for medical information, right? Blah, blah, blah. But let's go back to this now. So Ann Taylor reminds the judge that I am aware of specific news reporting in this case where Mr. Kober's DNA is published by the New York Times on June 11, 2023, that quote-unquote FBI personnel worked with the profile that Othram had produced, spending days building out a family tree that began with distant relatives. Yeah. The New York Times source have more information, Your Honor, than the state has disclosed to the defense. This New York Times article generated immense media coverage and interest, the scope of which is explained in the True Scope report attached as Exhibit D. In addition, Mr. Kober's defense team has discussed the use of statistics and this type of expert. Just pointing that out. This is all happening then. Supplemental request 3 was filed contemporaneously with what I just was talking about. And so to remind everybody about that is Ann Taylor did not have this then, which is in June. The profile is uploaded to a DNA database. In the event that the case involves the uploading of a DNA profile to either a local, state, or national database, please provide all documentations maintained by the testing laboratories to include documentation maintained by the CODIS, everything, personnel within the laboratory. She does not have this in June of 2023. Next, she says the state has provided information related to this request for the DNA on the snap of the knife sheath only. On the snap of the knife sheath only. Okay. Remember, that testimony would come 2 years after this. This testimony that I just read to you would come 2 years after this. Do you understand that Ann Taylor was being told that the snap was where this DNA was located. Look at how she's writing this. The state has provided information related to the request for the DNA on the snap of the knife sheath only. There is no DNA on the snap. This is a fucking lie. Next, the defense has requested all DNA profiles, including additional profiles developed during the course of law enforcement investigation. See declarations of counsel for Mr. Kohlberger, Bicka Barlow, and Steve Mercer filed simultaneously. Communications. Again, this is this next big motion to, this is her filing, which was defendant's third motion to compel discovery. The third supplemental request for discovery filed herein on or about May 3rd, 2023. And the communications. Please provide a copy of all communications between laboratory personnel and any other party with regard to biological testing in this case, including letters, memos, emails, texts, and records of telephone conversations. This is complete wow. And then look at this. With regard to outsourcing of DNA testing, their response to this request was number 6. All emails, text messages, electronic messages, or other messages have not been provided. See declaration of counsel for Mr. Kohlberger. That means everything that we and I have read over the past couple of days, you guys, she did not have this. Unexpected results. Remember, we talked about that. And then we get to the genetic genealogy portion. All reports generated by any lab that conducted SNP testing on any sample in this case, including from samples where unknown males, not the defendant, were identified. None. There were none done. 2, copies of all communications between laboratory personnel and other person or organization with regard to the instant case, including letters, memos, emails, internet posts, press releases, and records of other communications, including communications with regard to any DNA profile uploaded to any public or private DNA database. How about Blaker? How about when he went in person to talk with them? Okay. There is, in that limited report that he had, he doesn't say, he just was a carrier and just dropped it off, he supposedly is saying. Blaker was about to get bent over. You have no idea what was coming for Blaker. Blaker's involved in the Dylan and Bethany mess, where Victoria Gooch was literally schooling him on how to have an interview. Okay. Then Victoria Gooch was literally pulled away from the case and never to be heard about, seen about, talked to, nothing. Blaker running around dealing with doing the girls, and then he's also getting on a plane going to Othram to deliver the vial. Then he's also in Pullman. He's in Pullman being and working with Chris Engel for this car and the Elantra, and only working with the data, like, hey, we're just looking for white Elantras. And at that point in time, on 11/25, it should have been internally with 7 different make and models. And that's why Ann Taylor was like, why would you only hone in on light-colored Elantras? And it's 2011, 2013. Why are the people in Pullman going and looking for 2015s? Blaker they found out of all these freaking Elantras, can you believe it, that they went to the apartment complex, or they're saying that they went to the apartment complex, and driving around and saw Brian Kohlberger's was one of the first 7 documented Elantras. And it was on an Excel spreadsheet on 11/25. 11/25, 2022. Right before 11/28. Because between 11/28 and 12/5 was when his name gets uploaded in the name tab section of the ISP lab database reports for this case. Come again, Lana? Yeah, Blaker all up in it. Blaker all up in all of this. He doesn't, his report talks about nothing, that he's just some courier. Right here. All documents related to any genetic genealogy search, including but not limited to the creation of the user profiles, accounts, information, automated search results, uploading of data, all queries and search results from any private or public databanks, family tree information, and all other documents, reports, notes. And this is why I'm telling you right now that after I've talked to my source, that there is no way that you would have all of this if you truly went through IgG, and even if you went through the route of cheating and going into other databases, and I'm using cheating for lack of better words, if you were unethical is the correct word, and not abiding by the interim policy, that you would have all of this. There's no way that anybody is doing this type of work, which is very tedious, and that you're not saving, and you would have all your material. Here it all is. So all of that. And she writes this up on June 22nd, 2023. Then she puts in an order. This is the order on defendant's second motion to compel. Okay. At the outset of the hearing, the parties informed the court that they had reached agreements on all issues except requests 1, 4, and 109. During the hearing, the state represented that they are working with the FBI to obtain the information requested. And so I made a note here that requests 1, 4, and 109 pertain to the FBI. They would be working that's what they're trying to sell off right here to the defense back then, is that these reports have to do with the FBI. I mean, not these reports, these requests. Okay. So I made a note about this. The parties agreed that July 14th, 2023 was a reasonable date to get the requested 1, 4, and 109 stuff from the FBI. Okay. Then this is request 160. At the outset of the hearing, the parties informed the court that they had reached agreements on all issues except request 160. Request 160 asked the state to provide to the defendant the training records of 3 specific law enforcement officers. If you guys remember, this is when she wanted the training records. Well, let's go back and let's actually take another look at this. I found something of note. And during oral argument, the defendant argued that it needs the training records of these 3 specific officers identified in their request to understand the processes and methods the officers utilized. Specifically, the defense wants to see what training these officers have received in interviewing witnesses and collecting and evaluating evidence. Okay. The defense argued that the 3 officers identified each played a critical role in the investigation of this case. And here it is. 1 officer interviewed witnesses at the scene of the crime and worked on the search for a suspect, or worked for the search for a specific car of interest. Who interviewed people? 1 officer interviewed witnesses at the scene of the crime and worked on the search. And guess who that is? Okay. Blaker. 1000% that is Blaker. 1000% Blaker. 1000. Because they did such a terrible job. Exactly. Okay. Next, the second officer. This is the way that they're just describing who this person is. The second officer interviewed key witnesses expected to testify at trial. The defense expects to subpoena this officer for trial. The defense expects to subpoena this officer for trial. Finally, the third officer conducted multiple interviews of key witnesses after Brian Kober was arrested and attended the victims' autopsies and made decisions about what tips provided to law enforcement warranted further investigation. And now you're down to, ready? And this is where it would be either Tolson or Vargas, in my opinion. And I believe it's Tolson. Because he did a lot of the interviews with people from WSU. And he was with Joe Lake. The state argued that these three officers identified are not material to the state's case and will not be called at trial. So then I said, okay, hang tight. Because remember, I said, who isn't on whose witness list? So I said, who's not on whose witness list? Ready? Again, this is specifically for these people. So let's think about some stuff here. 100% Gary Tolson was not on the state's prosecutor. That was not on their list. Gary Tolson was at and attended that autopsy. I believe 100% he's one of them. Then who else didn't? Basically what the state's arguing is that these three people who Ann Taylor has outlined, she is not calling these people to the stand. Vargas, guess what Vargas went and did? Well, how did you determine, or where did you just pop up with, hey, let me call this person on Indian Hills and see if they have a Nest camera at this time. And then voila, it's there. Vargas, we're gonna get some information on that. And because then why did you probably say not to do other certain things? But and then who else does the state not have on their witness list that I'm like, damn, you know? So we'll talk about that a little bit later. They end up winning this argument, okay? Because here, the three officers' training records requested by the defense are material to be because of the preparation for the defendant. And Brian Kober has established a substantial need for the material in the preparation of his case. First, the defense adequately articulated the role of each of these officers and what they played in the interviewing of the witnesses in finding and collecting potential evidence. Finding and collecting potential evidence. Second, the training records of these officers are potentially relevant to a suppression issue on or challenging the credibility of the officers and reliability of their methods, similar to the training records of the canine officer, because this is the case that they were talking about. I just skipped them down. Other potential uses for the training records include to help prepare the defense for examination or cross-examination of the officers at trial, or to help establish or challenge a foundation. Yes, that's exactly the issue. The foundation for the admissibility of evidence gathered by those officers at trial. So request 160, you're popping on over. Again, why Bill Thompson would have a problem with any of that should be of grave concern. And then finally, here we go. Left the bangs for last. This is defendant's motion to compel discovery order June 29, 2023. The state respectfully submits the following specific supplemental responses to items 1 through 8. And then you can see where to locate these. And your guys are going to just blow up right here. Request 1, investigative reports and conclusions from all cell phone. This was their answer. The state has responded by listing page numbers and audio video file names of information and data provided to the defense and discovery. As of June 13, 2023, counsel for Mr. Kober has not received any of that stuff, right? Now, the state has complied with this request and has provided the following to us. Look at these dates. Bates pages, that just means in order from the discovery. Once we started, then we start like just numbering these pages. 12,319 to page 12,320. So just literally 2 pages. This is 2 pages. Then Bates pages from 1,388 to 13,289. Again, 2 pages. But look at it's supplemental report 196 from NPD. This is what they put in there. Look at what date he wrote this on. 5/11/2023. Okay. This is Maori. Look at this. I was assigned the task of examining the call detail records, CDRs, that were obtained from AT&T pursuant to a warrant served by Corporal Brett Payne for the time frame of November 12th, 2022 through November 14th, 2022. Dude, he then, okay, remember then they have this hearing, which will be a year later. Okay. So this is how they try to lie about this. And then she calls these fuckers. This is why she called him to the stand. Now it's coming full circle. They tried to pass this off. You guys know her request. This was what her request was. Her request is 1, investigative reports and conclusions from all cell phone analysis, including but not limited to any analysis conducted by police agencies. We know what Maori testified to. He didn't do any of this until he did not do anything prior to getting the search warrants. He was asked by Ashley Jennings in April, hey, we want you to do this stuff in preparation for what? The grand jury, motherfuckers. Maori did nothing of the sort. So Ann Taylor's request, which was written request 1, she's requesting this stuff in January, okay? In January of 2023. And they're providing material. So check this out of what they're trying to say that he did. And then he then testifies a year later to the complete, like, this is what they provide her. I was assigned the task of examining the call detail records that were obtained from AT&T pursuant to a warrant served by Brett Payne for the time frame of November 12th to November 14th. These records were requested for the account associated with phone number blank, known as the 845 phone. This phone showed the subscriber as Brian Koberger. Look at, he doesn't even know that it's with a Y. No clue. He has no clue what the fuck is up. I was specifically requested to examine the records showing connectivity to cell towers between the hours of 2 and 6. As this was the time frame surrounding the homicides at 1122 King Road, although the records contained records for voice, data, and SMS usage in the 48-hour data set, I only located 27 data usage records in the specified time frame. We have his testimony saying that he did none of the sort. He did not do this. You guys, he did not do this. He then testifies. You guys remember his testimony? I didn't. What? Huh? Oh shit! But remember, we don't have that testimony yet. This is what they were trying to produce in these discovery requests to Ann Taylor. They are Isn't this called manipulating and manufacturing evidence? Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Something like that, right? Is that right? Is that right? Oh my God. Like, this is so egregious. Now, he says, to assist in mapping the location of the cellular towers and the direction of their sector antennas, I imported the data into CastViz version. Did you? When did you do that? And this is what she was asking him. Ann Taylor says, when did you do this? Oh, I did this in like, I don't know, May. Oh, you did? May of what year? 2023. Oh, so not for the arrest of my motherfucking client. Exactly. We're gonna talk all about that map that was used. That map didn't exist yet. That map was from way before. It's oh my God. Do you see? This is so absolute, like, and I'm sorry, like, I have to show you guys what I found. This is a second grader could understand this. So this is the argument. Judge Hippler, I know that you just got onto this case. You said that you read through all this stuff, but I know that you didn't, because let me break this down for you. This is what they provided me in my requests, okay, to satisfy this request 1. MPD Supplemental Report 196. Okay, 2 pages, front and back right here, 2 pages. This has absolutely nothing to do with the arrest of my client. This was all wrote up and made up well after the fact, and they are trying to pass it off like he did it for the arrest of my client. And then, so that's how they try to make it seem when they answer this bullshit. Then, when we're actually at the big dance here, and I call this motherfucker to the stand, then he says that no, this was for the grand jury that I was asked to do later when Ashley Jennings came to me. Oh, so you use this report for something that you didn't do, but you pass it off like you did. That you did this before the arrest of Brian Koberger. Yeah, exactly. So if Ann Taylor failed to explain that portion of it and get it across that way, that's the argument here. Is that this report 196 that was written up, look at May 11th, 2023, right before the grand jury. Did you realize that the prosecutor used this report to satisfy a discovery request, detective? No. Why would I know that? How would I know that? Well, I'm showing you how now. How now, brown cow? I'm showing this now. So this report that was written, that should have been written if you did it, let's see when. So here. This report should have been written right after 12:23 when you got the CDRs of Brian Koberger, right? So the 8458 phone connects with several different cell towers in Pullman, Washington between 2 and 2:25. The phone appears to be traveling within or near the city of Pullman, Washington. You guys, I mean, does everybody, I need to know if you guys are understanding how crazy this is. 2:42 hours, the phone connects to a tower near Northeast Skyview Drive on the Washington State University campus. At 2:47 hours, the phone connected to a tower on Observation Drive on Washington State University campus. And then in continuing to examine the data, I found an approximate 2-hour period with no instruction or no interactions between the 8458 phone and the AT&T network between 2:47 and 4:48. You want to know why he had to write up this report? Because he's just going to act like, oh, I don't know how to read handoffs. I don't know how to read handoffs. This is fucking sick. The phone connects to a tower located near Paradise Ridge, south of Moscow, Idaho, at 4:48 hours. Yeah, the report of the stupid PCA. Map on screen. Yes. So these are all my notes just to plow his ass. Then what do we have here? Then she says that Bates pages 14412 to 14335, so like 20 some pages, discovered on 7/11/2023. Look at when they're making it seem discovered on 6/5. So the prosecution is saying, we just discovered this. Here you go. No, bitch. You didn't just discover this. Ashley Jennings had him write up this whole fucking fake ass report to present it like this is what they did. Like this is what Mowry did in December of 2022, and he did not. So Ashley Jennings, this is why I can say what I say about your fucking piece of shit fat ass. You are involved in this. Mowry testified. Well, it was because you asked me to. You asked me to. Mowry calls it. He says you asked him to, Ash. Was it in bed when he was twirling your hair? All right, let's get serious, guys. We cannot let the truth take any presenting this just because they're assholes. We're not going to be assholes. This is egregious as shit. And I'm telling you right now, this is far from over. Unfortunately, if he did commit these crimes, and you think that a guy who's writing up complaints in jail about his food not getting to him, if you think he's not going to be coming back with some shit here down the road, I think we're mistaken. This is what you would call a habeas easy filing here. The phone connects with towers south of Moscow, Idaho, which is consistent with travel back to Pullman, Washington, utilizing towers along the route. I said, what route? For my training and experience, again, you need these training records. For my training and experience, I know cellular devices can send and receive data to cellular towers with the user's input, such as surfing the internet, or without the user's input, system data. I'm sure you know that. I'm sure you knew that in November and December of 2022. You did not. The normal reasons for a cellular device to not show connections to a cellular tower are the device is not in range of the tower's signal. The device is physically blocked from receiving or sending, such as a Faraday bag. The device is in airplane mode, or the device is powered off. I contacted AT&T Global Legal Demand Center and confirmed devices on the AT&T network connect at least every 60 minutes if no user connectivity is initiated itself. I verified the location of the several towers shown in CastBiz and confirmed their locations with the data in the call detail records. Love Mowry. Oh, who was this reviewed by? Oh, Love Payne. And reviewed by Payne. Now, if you go in real time, Ann Taylor receives this report on or about June 5th, 2023, and then June 5th, 2023. So I go back to June 5th, 2023. On June 6th, 2023, the next day, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8. And then here's this on the 6, 7. 6, 8. Idaho State Police property receipt. 613, 613, 613. What are these items? Well, an Adidas shirt, a jacket, a DM note, wanted shoes, Converse shoes, Van shoes, curtain, blanket. Just seeing what they were up to, putting in the evidence. We'll come back to that one day. Okay, so this is what the state has complied with this request and has provided the following. And then it says we gave this AV 296 discovered on 5/8/2023. Then request 4. So hang tight. Then a year would go by. So this is 2023. Then a whole year would go by, right? And we finally have this hearing in May of 2024. So right before Mowry writes up this report on 5/22/2024. Okay. And this is CASVIZ working files. Previously, comma. Previously, comma. Previously, comma. The Latah County Prosecutor's Office requested any CASVIZ session logs pertaining to the phone number blank. I did not locate nor remember creating any session logs pertaining to the screenshots I created previously using CASVIZ version 30.0.0 as described in my previous report. While preparing for the motion to compel hearing set for May 23rd, 2024, I found the following files. They appear to be 2 zip files containing what appear to be CASVIZ session files, Cobra 48 hours records, and Cobra full records. Oh, now is this refreshing your memory? Now he gets up and is ready to testify on the stand that he didn't do any of this. He doesn't remember any of this. Okay, it's going to get good. I also located the following files with the session data files near crime scene. Oh my God, working CDRs. Remember working CDRs? Export 1, location on a map. Locations on a map. I located emails from FBI Special Agent Nick Balance providing me with the files above. Oh my God, finally have to come clean with where you got this information from. You didn't do it. You wrote up a report, though, that you did under the pains and penalty of perjury. Mowry's going to lose his job. Promise. Promise. Does anybody need me to remind what this man testified to on the stand? Behind the scenes, none of us knew in 2023 what they used to satisfy Ann Taylor's requests until I went back, pulled these out, looked at what the heck, and thank God whoever wrote this up put MPD Supplemental Report 196. Then I was like, fuck, we have that. Let me go see what that is. I was like, oh my God. And I'm able to show this is that report. Read it just for you guys right there, right here, right now. Then we can remember what Mowry was testifying to. I don't know, and I didn't do that. Blah, blah, blah. But then this report right here, let's read this one more time. The day before the hearing, he says, I located emails. In trying to open these session files in CASVIZ to verify them, I received an error message. Well, why would that be? An error message. In reviewing the metadata, it showed the version of CASVIZ used to create them was 28.0.0. Huh. Wait a second. Ready? Old report. To assist in mapping the location of the cellular towers and the direction of the sector antennas, I imported the data into CASVIZ version 30.0.0. Wait, what does this say? In trying to open these session files and CastViz to verify them, I received an error message. In reviewing the metadata, it showed the version of CastViz used to create them was 28.0.0. What's this all about then, you motherfucking lying sack of shit? It's because version 28.0.0 is Brian Kohlberger's AT&T timing advanced, isn't it, Daddy? Say it for me. 28.0.0 is before 30, isn't it, Daddy? Daddy Mowry, say it for me. You fuck. Well, what is the date of that version? What is the date of that version? Your girl's on it. Woo! Oh my God. Jeez. They have his timing advance records. 28.0.0. 28.0.0 is Brian Kohlberger's timing advance records. 30, again, here, going back to this. So this is the at 5/22/2024. He's saying that in reviewing the metadata, it showed the version of CastViz used to create them was 28.0.0, which meant that everything with Brian Kohlberger that was created in 28.0.0. Because let's start doing some math. He's over here like, in reviewing the metadata to the version of CastViz user, okay. In speaking with FBI agent, why would you speak to Sean Kennedy? Why didn't you speak with Nick Balance? But Sean Kennedy, sure, who teaches CastViz trainings, he informed me I would not be able to open a previous version, session file 28, in a newer version of the software, which is 30. So what that would mean is that when you actually did this, you complete fucking piece of shit, when you did this and then you tried to play it off that you used version 30 in November or in December of 2022, you sick son of a bitch. You didn't. You couldn't. That would have been version 28.0.0. Ashley Jennings had Mowry lie. Mowry lied for Ashley Jennings. Not once, not twice, 3 different times. Okay, then where are we at? Let me go back to his version that we wanted to write up on. This is the 5/22, 2024. He says, speaking with Agent Sean Kennedy, who teaches at blah, 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 in examining the drawings from this JSON file, this is inside CastViz file, okay, I found references to 1122 King Road and what in Pullman, Washington. In examining the drawings, what was the date of that? And why is that being redacted? Remember when they went to pull the cigarettes? They were following somebody and the person had cigarettes and it was at a Pullman apartment. Okay. Which means that you had preserved and mapped an area which would fall in where Brian Kohlberger's cell phone would have been. Okay. So back when they were following somebody with a cigarette, that they got those 2 cigarettes. It has nothing to do with Kopeka, okay? Nothing to do with him. I just need you to focus. This is about preserving an area. Preservation. Okay? if you're preserving an area for the data, if you're preserving the area, okay, that means anybody that would have fallen inside that area, right, that had their cell phones and stuff like that with AT&T, okay, you preserve Brian Koberger shit. And that's why they were able to go back when they were using and doing the stuff. When they found the name Brian Koberger, they already had that area. So here we go. And that's what these, this 28.0 and then like the 30.0. And they fucked up covering their tracks. And when stupid people try to cover tracks, it's like just so blatantly obvious. And they're stupid. You know, I'm sorry, but just because you're a cop does not mean you're smart. And I don't know where anybody gets that from. Okay, he's stupid. Mowry is not smart. Stupid. Because anytime you would ever be involved in something like this is stupid. Ashley Jennings is crooked. Anytime that you would be asking somebody to testify to known lies on the stand, that's prosecutorial misconduct. You cannot ask somebody a question that you know that they're lying about. This police report that was wrote up on 5/11/2023, Ashley Jennings knew that this was, and it was passed off by the prosecutors back in 2023 as being, hey, yep, here, this is what Mowry did. And that he did it before the arrest of Brian Koberger. Only to come out to find out that, so this is where the lying is. You're providing me with material and trying to pass it off like it was prior to arresting Brian Koberger. Then only when we finally get to the fact of having these suppression hearings and these Franks hearings, okay, that we get to find out that here, Mowry's like, I wrote that up after the fact. I was not involved with anything to do with the phones. And so, because I was the person that was going to be testifying to the grand jury. And that's when she was specifically saying, but when was that? When was it? That was way after this. And you were testifying to the grand jury for something that you didn't do. So you passed it off to the grand jury that you did this stuff back in 2022 to arrest my client, but you really weren't involved at all. They kept on lying and 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 lying. And it's like, why would you ever be part of cleaning up somebody's mess for them? I'll tell you why. When you have people have blackmail on each other for everything. Why wouldn't Mowry say, get fucking Nick Balance in here to testify? I'm not testifying to this shit that I didn't do. I'm not doing this. Even if you sit me down and say, hey, well, we're going to, this dude is going to walk. And if you guys didn't fuck up on, we can't use this SD card, and you guys would have made all these mistakes, then we wouldn't be needed to clean it up this way. So you're going to fucking do what I ask you to do, God damn it. Okay? Otherwise, you will not have a career. This is career ending. So either we're all in this to save our jobs and to stop a murder, blah, 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 or we're all fucked. So either get on board. That's the conversations that would have been had. If you don't think that that's what was happening, you are a fucking puppet. You are stupid. If you don't think that that's what was being talked about. All it would take is listening to what I'm saying and giving you the receipts to show, and then listening to the testimony, going back and looking at these discovery requests, looking at what was satisfied for them. That's what proves the lies, is what you're trying to say is satisfying of this. You're satisfying it with a lie, that a report that you just wrote up to lie about something, but then you messed up so bad. And that's why the most important question here is, where does Cyray's name start popping up in terms of, hey, why and when did you get involved in this case? And this is it. All these lies. And I believe that it would be someone like, if he has a relationship with Josiah Roloff, because he's got to know all these dudes, right? And if Josiah Roloff was like, hey, if anybody knows about all this location data, it'd be the person that created all the shit. Out of the abundance of caution, I placed these files into a folder, named them CastViz. I then located the folder in which the data I used for the CastViz session, where I saved screenshots from exhibits that he used for the grand jury. I saved screenshots for exhibits. No session files were located because he didn't create the fucking session files. They were given to him prior to. If there is no session files were created, the screenshots created had a date of 4/19/2023. The screenshots created had a date of 4/19/2023. That's a screenshot of a screenshot. Do you guys know what a screenshot of a screenshot is? Let me explain this. This is how I catch trolls, okay? This is how I catch people fabricating evidence, too. If I take a screenshot of the actual, let's say you take a screenshot of your computer, okay? You guys know that you can do that. You can left click, whatever, and then it gives you the option to screenshot, okay? There's going to be metadata associated with that screenshot. But if I then take a screenshot of your screenshot that you actually did in December of 2022, the screenshot that I just took of that screenshot has metadata. And that's the metadata that they fucking covered this all up with, was the 4/19/2023. And that's when Antares asked him, like, why do you have screenshots from 4/19/2023? What were you doing in April 19th of 2023? Taking a screenshot of a screenshot is overriding the original data. And I shouldn't say it's overriding it, but you can go back and find the original screenshot. There is original screenshot. You'd have to do lots. You'd have to then ask for the computer itself. You'd have to get the device that the screenshot was made on. And you want to know what started happening? And that's how the people in the Scott Peterson case that he piggybacked was the moment that they got a motion to compel the computers of John Evers from fucking Modesto Police Department in a different case. Can you believe it? Miraculously, guess what pops up? Oh, yeah, here's this stuff. I found it. Because nobody's getting in that computer. But, oh, wait, here. But we're at least willing to admit that, yeah, we kind of didn't turn over 82 audio recordings. What? We need to start if you guys want to rewrite rules, statutes and stuff, they need to be rewrote, because guess what? Times have changed. Okay. The times have changed. It used to be that we keep our most valuable shit in our homes in a safe, in filing cabinets. Nowadays, your phone is your home. Okay. We need to change what's available for anybody if they get our phone and they say, oh, can we just download it? Blah, blah, blah. No, you can't. You don't get to go into everything in my phone. Who would ever think that? Who would think that it's like coming into my house and you need a search warrant to go searching in certain spots. Okay. You just don't get a blanket. Here you go. And everything that you get in my phone. And it has my kids, all my kids shit with because we have like my chart apps with like health and stuff like that. You don't get that. What if you helped take care of one of your parents and they're sick or what? You don't get this. You don't get any of this. You don't get this stuff. So things need to change. Everything is in our phone. Everything is in our phone. Or I'm this close. Fuck smartphones. I don't need one. I did perfectly fine without one. I don't need it. And guys, the moment that you throw this away, don't ever turn over anything. Throw this in the garbage. Throw it in the water. Especially when you're innocent. They will make a circumstantial case against an innocent person because anybody could. But anyways, here's Mowry. Out of abundance of caution, I placed these files into a folder and named them Mowry for these screenshots then. Out of abundance of so he's Mowry. What? Because he's claiming now that he did these screenshots, he's claiming that on 419 basically without saying that. Because look at, he doesn't come out and say it because it's like, don't lie, but learn how to write a report so you can that's not what I claimed. Read the report again. That's why I laugh when I say to a police officer or detective, and I'm like, hey, I pay attention to the language and I see what you did right there. And then they say, no, you're looking into it way too much. I said, no, I'm looking into it perfectly fine. Okay, I'm looking into it perfectly fine. And when I looked into that probable cause affidavit and I started pointing out the different language, and I said, look at the language here. No, you're just looking into it like that. I said, oh, really? I said, and then what happens is it's exactly what Judge Hippler did. Judge Hippler used the language to satisfy that, nope, you're not going to get this, because he said that the car was moving. It was traveling south. That's not what he meant. But this needs to stop. If you like to get gaslit, like, I mean, you must love a good, dry hump. Go enjoy it. This is ridiculous. So here, then the next thing we come across is Ann Taylor's like, I'm asking for request 4, which is all footage provided to a forensic examiner with FBI to use, identify make and model, remember all that? The state has responded by listing various page numbers and file names of the recordings they have previously provided. However, they do not provide any reports. Any reports generated, communications, and documents relating to the change in year of the white Elantra, or the CV or identity of the forensic examiner who identified this, who did all this. How the fuck can't you be telling somebody this? This is like over. Brian Colbert was supposed to have his day to go to trial was supposed to be October of 2023 if he didn't waive his right to a speedy trial. Okay, think about this. You didn't waive your right to a speedy trial. That's what was happening in this case. This is on July 11th, 2023. He's supposed to go to trial in October. Okay. The state has complied with this request and has provided the following. That's what she said at first. Okay. Then they're saying this. Bates page. So you're going to get 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So like 5 pages. And it's discovered on 4/25/2023 related to A, which is this. All reports generated related to the identification of the white Elantra. So they discovered it on 4/25/2023. And they're saying that on July 11th, and this would be Immel's report. Then 6/5/2023 related to B, which is all reports, communications, and documents related to the change in year of the white Elantra. And they're saying that this is what satisfies these Bates pages discovered on 6/26 related to C, the CV or credentials for the forensic examiner. Request 17. The state has responded that they are attempting to obtain this information if it exists. Here it is. The state has complied with this request and has provided the following. Hard drive provided to defense on 4/5/2023. And remember, they never came out and said what request 17 was. I'm trying to still figure that out. Then request 23. Again, this is another one that they did not give the specifics, but here it is. The state has been informed this phone interview was completed by S.A. Shirley, who confirmed this referenced phone interview was not recorded. And that's what I believe is Molly McMichael. Because what Ann Taylor would have heard, like we all heard, when you play the Molly McMichael interview, she mentions stuff about talking to people beforehand. And then there's a woman named Robin. She's saying a bunch of shit. And so Ann Taylor's asking for things. And here, off of that Molly interview, The state has been informed this phone interview was completed by Shirley, who confirmed this reference phone interview was not recorded. So you're going to have the FBI talk to Molly, okay? Or whoever this person was. Whoever this person was. And my guess is I'm saying it's Molly. Who else would be, if you think about it, if you're Ann Taylor, this is request 23. How soon would you be requesting, after you hear the Molly McMichael interview, would you be requesting something from that? Well, right here. Like, I'm all over that. And because of how you found her, you put a trap and trace on her phone. What? Then 109 identified who's the FBI special agent. The state objected to this request. Now, Mr. Colbert disagreed, right? Now, the state has complied with this request and has provided the following. Bates pages 14409 to 14411. So 9, 10, 11, 3 pages. 3 pages, and they were asking for the identity of the FBI agent that is a member of the cellular analysis team that was consulted with to determine locations of the phone from 11/12 to 11/13 and all CAS certification records and training. So here, July 11th of 2023, that's when that was satisfied. Supposed to have a trial in October. Request 120 and 140, those are the tips. The state has complied by providing all tips in its possession to the defense. The state will continue to supplement this request. Now, you're saying, remember this, a complete and chronological list of all tips has not been provided. The state has complied by providing all tips in its possession to the defense. That's what they've claimed. Now, how is Ann Taylor not able to go back and truly say that at this point in time, how come she was being turned over tips? And why wouldn't this be the focus of your argument? Because Ann Taylor's talking about how she was receiving tips and shit up to the point of basically the what do you call it? The plea deal. That blows me right there. Like, I wouldn't be saying that this had been satisfied at all. The state will continue to supplement this request as additional information is received. The tips have been provided in the same manner as provided to the state, is what they're saying. A complete and chronological list of all tips does not exist. The tips have been provided in the same manner as provided to the state. And all this is going to come back and do is down the road. You guys, they're trying to say that a chronological and complete list of all tips does not exist. That is such bullshit. How the fuck could you investigate if you didn't have your tips arranged? You're going to come out here. You were asking for everybody to help. We were all helping and providing tips that we're not even, who the fuck knows where they went? Who believes this? Who believes this? Dude, it's the goddamn FBI and it's the state agencies. You don't think they have some way to organize shit? I don't believe it. If you believe it, you wild as hell. Man, you must still believe in Santa Claus. You must be giving yourself gifts, signing them as Santa, and you're like, yeah, Santa came. Fuck, man. Request 136 is all audio recordings related to all search warrants obtained in this matter. Hey, Carol, what's up? Yeah, I don't I don't know if that's, I don't know about that. Why would there be a phone interview? You know what I mean? Why would there be a phone interview? Okay. 136. All. So this is what they say. The state has complied with this request and has provided the following. AV 17 discovered on 2/7/2023. When did you get that? They waited how many months to give that to you? They just complied with that when? In July of 2023, and they've had it since this day. Request 164, body cam recordings, notes, photographs, and all information collected at the autopsies by Tolson, Vargas, and Gunnarsson. Well, the state advised that this does not exist. They just went there to fucking high five each other. Okay. Now I'm going to be renaming this live to uncovering the truth behind the motions to compel in 2023. And I'm going to have you guys come back tonight for the body cam. So that's how I'm going to decide to do it. So you guys get a double feature, but this way it can be separated. This live, in my opinion, should be really, really valuable to understanding the whole scope of the lies. When you peel back the onion and you look at what they were saying and what they were providing and then what they then said and did a year and two later, it's complete opposite. They knew it and they lied. So why nobody has an issue with this, and I think that they just don't want to talk about it because people are of the opinion like, well, the ends justifies the means. Okay. And you could be in that boat if you feel like, well, the ends justifies the means. How do you know the ends justifies the means? How do we truly know that when all of this stuff, who would need to do any of this stuff if it's just so, you know, because I try to get down with people like that. I try to put myself in that position where it's like, what do you mean the ends justifies the means? What do you mean that? They got him. They got the right guy. Look at his DNA. It was on that sheet. It matched, right? They got the right guy. What about all the other DNA? What about the blood that's in the house? What about the fact that if more than one person did this, you know, I don't think that there is justification here. I think that this pointed to multiple people. But at the end of the day, if you want to be in the criminal justice world, that's not how you think. And that's not how you do things. Because it's called beyond a reasonable doubt. If you want to go be in civil land and work with the preponderance of the evidence, but would you ever want these people? Like, is this how you would want your case handled? It's crazy. So it has nothing to do with Brian being innocent, guilty, nothing like that. Brian said and pled guilty. But we'd be dumb if we just sat here and said that people that aren't innocent haven't said that they've done something that they didn't do. And I'm just simply showing the facts. And the facts are that these people had no problem lying. It was all strategic on how they lied. And then they just said, don't worry about what you testified before. Come back and testify this way. And Judge Hippler is going to look the other way. And that to me is the most egregious shit. And that's what Cyray's affidavit was all about. Like, you're not blind to this, Hippler. You know what's going on. And if you don't, then you need to get a new job. It's beyond evident. And the real the big picture here is that it's all been one lie from the beginning on how you are saying that you got to Brian Kober, your probable cause. Everything that's flowing from everything, it would be tossed. And that's why when people want to say, I would just recommend it to be careful. Because if Brian Kober ever does appeal, I think he has so many grounds to win. So So that's all. It's so bad. But guess what? Everybody that's here and everybody that's been saying that it's so wrong and that this is lies, here's the proof here in this 3 hours and 25 minutes that you were right the whole time. And so be proud of that. Be proud of that you questioned the right things and that you had a reason to question and that you were right. Because this episode shows without a doubt, beyond a reasonable doubt, what I just presented here today is that it's prosecutorial misconduct, perjury, conspiracy. They conspired. They're protecting. So I just can't believe that you wouldn't want to get everybody involved and have them all the fuck go down. How did you truly get to Brian Culver? Because you didn't do it through getting a tip on December 19th for the name Brian Culver. See you on the next one, which is tonight, body-worn camera all through the nighttime. Yes, Heather, and it's way worse than people would have ever thought. It's very deep.